Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 462. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Can you believe this is the week of our 10th anniversary? So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, the Duke of You-Know, and the elder statesman of the podcast.
How's it going, eh?
It's going great. Jim, on this episode, we are going to be talking to longtime friend of the show, Alan Passalaqua, as we talk about his work in comics in general, because he's done a lot in comics recently, but most recently his color work on Batman and Robin Eternal. Besides that, we're going to talk about the most recent issue of Batman and Robin Eternal, issue number 25. We're going to talk about Batman number 50 and Superman number 50. Plus, we have some listener voicemails. It's a big episode, and we're proud to celebrate with you 10 years of Raging Bullets. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on at DCBService.com?
Well, as you know, they always have our bundles that we love. And they're continuing the Vertigo support, all 12 titles, 50% off, only $23.88. But there's something else about DCBS, and we don't normally talk about this, but I'm going to throw it out there. Action figures. DCBS is a great spot to get action figures. If you're a collector of them, whether you're collecting, whether you're letting your kids play with them, whatever you're doing, they are also a great source of it. And right now they've got some based off of the Batman versus Superman action figures. They've got the armored Batman version, normally $50, 32% off, only $34. And of course, if you got the Batman, you have to have Superman. And he's, again, regularly $45, 32% off, $30.60. These are some great, just action figures. But the one thing I saw that I actually did order for myself is they have an accessories pack. Now, I'm not a high action figure collector, so you're like, why would you get the accessories? Well, the main reason are two things in here. One, they got a cool trophy case of the Earth 2 Flash helmet inside it that looks really awesome. But they also got a little Chip mini action figure. I'm like, yeah, Jeff. So I had to pick that up. So there's some great options here. Always check this out. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, they're always doing those 50% off deals of the week, and they got some really cool ones here. They got the Cyborg trade paperback, Volume 1 Unplugged, 50% off, only $7.49. Dr. Fate trade paperback, Volume 1. 50% off, only $7.49. Starfire's trade paperback, Volume 1. 50% off, only $7.49. They've also got Robin, Son of Batman, hardcover Volume 1, 50% off, only $11.49. Superman and the Justice League of America, Volume 1, 50% off, only $8.99. Those are some great deals. And when you take a look at that price point, if these are books that you've missed or ones that you're like, I'd really like a collected version of this to be able to sit down and read and enjoy it, what a great way to do it at these price points, 50% off. Always check out their deals of the week. They change them every week. There's some amazing deals there. Bundle them with the latest releases that they have there, or do some searching for books that you're looking for. 50% off, $50 or more, I should say, offers free shipping. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
And 10 years later, let's talk more comics.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Joining us once again, and this is really appropriate because this month we're celebrating our 10th anniversary of the podcast, and actually this show is going to be released on the week of what will be 10 years for Raging Bullets. Longtime friend of the show, Alan Passalaqua. And Alan, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Thanks, guys. It's been a long time. I think it might have been your first first, second, or third year. I'm not sure when exactly my first time was on
the first year. Actually, you were the first creator. We actually had, you were kind enough to reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've been listening to the show. I'd love to come on and talk to you guys." And you were really the history of our show for people that haven't been listening back then. I wasn't even sure back then if we should have creators on our podcast because we always talk positively about what we really enjoy about comics, and I didn't want people to think we were doing that as a way to like pull creators into doing the podcast. I didn't want them to think we were disingenuous. So I wasn't sure if having creators on would actually ruin that, thinking for people that we were being genuine. And you opened my mind to like, wow, what a great benefit to actually talk to creators about the process. I'm not an artist. I'm not a writer. You guys are the ones behind the scenes that are crafting these worlds that we're pulled into. And you really opened up for me an understanding of what color work brings to comics, to the point where I appreciate it now in a way. I always appreciated comics and what they've done for me artistically, and I know when a great team is on a book, because there's just something different. But now I do notice the layers more of what goes into comics, and for somebody who's not an artist, that says a lot for the quality of what you've brought to our podcast when you've come on and educated us. So I'm thrilled to have you back on.
Well, I'm happy to be on. I can't believe it's been 10 years. That's insane to me.
It's insane to us as well.
Wow. But it's great to talk to you guys again, and I'm doing DC stuff again, so it's very appropriate. I'm glad to chat you up.
So we're going to talk a little bit as the main focus of this episode about some of your work recently on Batman and Robin Eternal, the weekly series. But before we jump into that, I'd actually like to, as a geeky Valiant fan, I'd like to talk to you really quick about Valiant and your work over there. Mainly just to shout it out as a fan to say how much I really appreciate the work that you've done over at Valiant. I'm a huge fan of those characters. I love what the relaunch of Valiant has brought to the table in terms of quality. I mean, there's great writing, terrific artwork. The characters are handled with the same level of continuity and respect that I think they received in the original Valiant universe that made such a buzz back in the day. So for me as a fan, I'm like, wow, this is a reboot of it, but did they nail what has made, and when I say they, I'm talking about everybody creatively who's working on these books, are really, every single title is just delivering a quality that really is what I've come to expect from the Valiant brand.
Yeah, they're really doing it. Back in the day when I first started reading comics in the 90s, one of the things that got me really interested in how comics were made was X-O Manowar from Valiant, drawn by Bart Sears. And, it was one of the first computer colored comics. And when they relaunched XO, I was buying books. I love the concept. I like Bloodshot. It's just, their universe is really tight and it's really well done. And the people I work with there are awesome. So not to say that other companies aren't, but it's a great experience. And then I really enjoy their line, their universe.
Is it different because you've had experience working at multiple comic companies over the years? Is there a difference because, obviously as a color artist, you have a sensibility and a process to what you do, and it's really apparent in your work, and I'm looking forward to talking about that through Batman and Robin Eternal. Are expectations or guidelines different for you when you're working with different companies? Is it different to work for Valiant than DC or Marvel? What is that like for you as a creator? Or is it pretty much, I get the script, I get the pages, I go on theme and tone of what's going on there. It's really the same.
Well, luckily for me, I've been doing this for close to 10 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. I've talked to you guys 10 years ago. They know what they're going to get from me. So usually when a company approaches me, they have a pretty good idea what I'm going to do, no matter what the book is or who the publisher is. My job is to read the script and make sure the story comes through with colors. And I've got a lot of freedom for the most part. Every once in a while, like on Batman and Robin Eternal, I messed up Bluebird's boots a couple times, so I had to go back and fix those. But it's just little continuity things usually that I have to adjust. It's rarely do I ever get, no, you did this wrong, because I've been doing it long enough. I think they get what I'm going to do, or they understand what I'm doing. Maybe if they don't get it, but they're like, yeah, he's been doing it long enough. He probably thinks he knows what he's doing. So we'll let it go.
That's got to be nice at this point in your career, though, to have kind of a reputation for what you deliver. and how you deliver it. So then you can kind of work on your craft yourself and kind of like, how do I stretch how I do this? How do I, take it to the next level? Because it's really apparent in your work. Like when I see your name on something, I have a certain expectation as a fan now, which is very different for me because I always enjoyed art teams on books. And I never, as a reader, and I would say I'm probably indicative of most fans, I'm the kind of fan that you're really looking for, where it's just, I delve into the world, you pull me in, and I'm so absorbed into the world that I'm captivated, and you've delivered mood, tone, and taken me on an experience, which is really the ride you're looking for most fans. Because I read the books multiple times now, and you've helped educate us on art and how color work really works in relation to it. I do find that, like, when I do my second and third read-throughs on it and I'm really examining art, I spend a lot of time looking at not just pencil and ink work, color work, and how that really affects my sense of mood. And one of the things I like that Valiant does is in the back of the book, a lot of the issues, they will publish the black and whites. So it's fun to look at that and then look back at the color work and really get a sense of, oh, wow, look at how that affects the storytelling. And I think that's been a thing that I've really enjoyed seeing so regularly in their digital product, has been those extra pages to be able to go look at that and look back and see the color work.
Cool. I mean, I think that's really cool that you appreciate that, or you notice that, because when I first started doing coloring, colorists were kind of coming into their own at that time, like even 10 years ago. We kind of came from a place where coloring in the 80s was pretty much basically the artist or the separator would take a Xerox of the page, hit it with a marker, and then send it off to like these little shops in New York where these ladies would go through and cut lithographs. They literally hand cut the film for the plates to print with. So sometime, it kind of took a while for the older artists and the older generation to kind of accept that we as colorists are actually adding or doing something that I think adds a lot to the books and the story. So it's cool that you've noticed that and you appreciate it, because that's my goal. I want to make my goal is to read the script and look at the art and try to emphasize that story any way I can.
I'm looking at issue 17 of Batman and Robin Eternal, and one of the things I love on the cover now, I'm noticing more often that the whole creative team is, or more of the creative team, I shouldn't say it's not the whole creative team, but more of the creative team, including the color artists, are being listed on the cover. I really appreciate that, because it's nice to see, especially when you're dealing with a weekly book where creative teams are changing in order to keep up with those deadlines. Because the book, it's billed as a weekly book. It needs to come out weekly. Fans have an expectation of that. So you've got rotating creative teams, and it's nice to see who's working on that particular title to really get behind the work, the tone, and the delivery of that. And I like that shift.
Yeah, I do too. I've worked on the 52 book, when they were doing that weekly book. I worked on Trinity. I worked on a couple weekly books, and it's impossible for one art team to put out a book a week. It's just there's no way it could happen. It's great that it's David and Chris. Those are the editors for Batman. I can never pronounce David's last name. It starts with a W. It's like Waziga? I don't know. And Chris Conroy. They really went above and beyond, like putting together consecutive teams to like work on that story every week. Yeah, and as a colorist, I'm stoked to have my name on the cover. That's super cool, man. And I'm pretty much a big nerd when it comes down to it. Like, I was buying Batman and I was buying comics in the early 90s because I was a huge fan, and then it's pretty awesome to see my name on the cover now.
Have they changed some stuff with running the weekly comics? Have they, if I would assume every time you do these weekly adventures where they figure out, no, let's do it this way. Has there been much tweaks from when you first started to what you're currently doing it?
Well, it's definitely been streamlined. It's never an easy process to do a weekly book. I mean, you're talking about 20 pages a week. It's got to be a fairly continuous story. I think this was all done, plotted out by Scott Snyder and, with various other writers chipping in to fill in for story and dialogue. I know Tim Seeley was part of this. I've worked with him on Hack Slash, and he's a buddy of Mike Norton, which I'll talk to you guys about at some point, because I wasn't even working with him when I first talked to you. Yeah, I mean, it's a serious laborious process to like get a book out a week. I'm very impressed that they do it.
Do they actually let you? Do you get the script for all the projects so you know what's going on, or do they focus on do you focus on what the issues you're working on, or how's that kind of process work out? I'm always curious as to who knows what.
Well, I get the scripts for the book I work on, and then I usually ask for just PDFs of the books that come before it. So basically a digital version of the comic book, so I can look through and look at color reference and read the dialogue and figure out what's going on. Kind of the point now where I can color a comic without a script if I had to, and in fact I have in the past. But I don't want to sound like I'm gloating or whatever, but I've just been doing it long enough where I know how to make it work. They give me as much information as I ask for, and I don't need every script because the scripts are kind of hard to read every script. I'd rather just read the comic book and then read the script for the book I'm actually working on. So does that answer your question?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Cool, I appreciate that you ask for visual reference of the previous issues, because one of the things I will say that I've really loved about Batman and Robin Eternal has been it's really clear that each art team is putting on their own creative stamp. But I mean that as complimentary. It's not jarring. And I think there's a difference between the two. I think there's a difference between taking the issue and going, look, we really want this issue to feel special. Because the issues you were involved with had some big events happening. There was some real storytelling drama going on in these issues. And I was glad. I was like sitting there, I'm like, oh, this is great, because I love the events that were going on in these issues. Because it really was a roller coaster ride on what was going on in them. But I will say this, and this is really a true compliment to all of the art teams working on this particular weekly. There's a consistency to the characters and how they're being presented, even though there's different art teams working on them, while still having that unique stamp that you get when you're like, oh, cool, they're working on this issue, and you get that kind of unique vibe that you get from the art teams. That balance is really important to me as a reader, to enjoy the art for the style, while at the same time feeling like I'm still operating in the same in the same sandbox, I should say, as the previous issues that I've been reading. That's been really consistent about it. I think it's hard to do in a weekly.
It is, because as a colorist, I did some stuff with Gabe Eteb. You guys, your listeners probably think I don't know anybody, because I'm terrible with names, and most of the people I talk with in comics is via email, so I just see like their name, but I don't actually know how to pronounce it. Not that my name's easy, Passalaqua. But so Gabe has a slightly different style. Like everybody, artist, colorist, inker, whatever, we all have different styles. So there's always going to drift a little bit. But it's up to people like David and Chris Conroy to keep everything as basically just rolling as smoothly as possible, and try to like not have those jarring moments where suddenly the Huntress has blue hair instead of brown hair. So, because those are things we have to deal with sometimes.
To the name point, we, first of all, apologize almost every single episode for name butchery, because we like to read off the creative teams as we start discussing books, mainly because of the fact that I think creative teams are really important to the process of what we do. From a selfish standpoint, I like to get to know the people on the books that we're talking about, sensibilities, and start noticing style and things like that. I'm by far, because I don't have an artistic background, I'm far from an expert, but from a fan standpoint, I like to know what is it that I find appealing. I butcher names so badly, but what ends up happening is, and I do equate it to, I was a teacher for many, many years. Now I'm in administration in what I do. But when I had students in my class, last names I was often terrible with. In the sense where my pronunciation of students' last names were bad. I would always tell my students, I apologize. My last name is Whalen, but the E and the A are reversed from the sound. So I would get Whelan again. My first name is Sean. It's S-E-A-N, so I would get Sean, all that type of thing. And I would always share that with my students so they didn't feel bad if I made a mistake. And I was always tell them, please correct me. But with people in general, like, we don't refer to you as Alan Passalaqua. Like, in the whole interview, when I'm going to say Alan, and we're going to, talk that way. I'm not going to go Alan Passalaqua to everything. So what ends up happening is the last name tends to be the thing that we hear in an initial meeting with somebody.
Yeah.
But you don't refer to people by their last names, which is why, even if you're having a phone conversation, you mentioned Gabe, and his last name we butcher on the show constantly. and I know I do it, and I apologize, and obviously I'm stuck on what my pronunciation is of it. When you meet him...
Is it Etab? Itab?
You've got to be doing better than we are, because we have done like 7 different variations of that at minimum. Horribly butchered it, and I always apologize because of the fact that the reason why we read off names, what we revert to as spelling when we know we're butchering it, because we'll go do the disclaimer afterwards, going, we really respect these people and their work, and that's why we're shouting them out, which means we feel awful when we're horribly ruining their name.
Maybe on the DC Wiki we should do a phonetic spelling of our names for people that want to say them on the radio or whatever.
Yeah, honestly, that would be a slice of heaven.
You reminded me, and I wanted to bring it up. I'm actually teaching now at California College of the Arts.
Nice.
In a master's in comic books program. So we actually are doing a master's in comic books.
So they wind up with a master's degree? And that is awesome.
Yeah, it's a master's in comics. It's through the literature English side of the school, and then what I teach is a class called Digital Tools, where I basically take the second-year students and I show them how to make a comic or do everything you can with a computer for comics. And it's a great program. It's a really fun program.
How long has this been in existence?
This will be my 3rd year, so this will be the 4th year.
That's really incredible. I think it's great that that's being offered now. It just shows how far comics have advanced. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Well, now, do you have to have talent to actually do this class, or like artistic, creative talent? Because you're sitting there talking and going, I want to go back to school all of a sudden.
Well, you do need to create something. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be an artist. Although going through the program, you definitely have to draw and do drawing, and it's pretty amazing. Like some of the students that I've talked to who are not artists at all, like really found themselves and were able to like do some drawings because of the program. But their main thing was they were writers. So it's kind of it hits everything in comics. We have some really amazing teachers. We have some great speakers coming every week. It's a really cool program, and it's in San Francisco. It's kind of it's a 3-year program where fall and spring it's a mentorship, so it's kind of at home or online studies, and then the month of July is all in classroom. And these students, man, they're doing like 50, 60 hours a week in classroom, not counting homework, for like 3 or 4 weeks. It's
wow,
pretty intense. Yeah. I don't give homework because I'm teaching them on the computer, so they that way they just work in class. But it's 3 hours every day during that month of July.
That's phenomenal. And I would think when you mentioned writers, I would imagine whatever to Jim's point about talent, whatever your talent avenue is to exploring that program, there's got to be a huge advantage to understanding the other layers of how comics are created. So that way you understand how to facilitate and maybe communicate the language of the other members of the team that you're working with. I think that's got to be a tremendous benefit to going through that type of programming.
I definitely think so. I started in comics at Wildstorm as a production artist. So I was basically a grunt, and I scanned in black and white pages, and I put together. They weren't even PDFs at that time. We were doing Quark, but I was taking the finished pages and putting them together and sending them off to the printer. And I learned a lot about the process and about what worked and what didn't work. And that's helped me immensely as a colorist, because I know what's going to work or what's not going to work, and it's knowing how things are built or what you need to do. It really makes the final product much better. And I think it works for anybody who's thinks himself above like the the worker level, the blue collar level, or whatever. But did that make sense? You guys,
it absolutely.
I don't talk in public very often.
No. It's honestly fascinating. Honestly, coming from an education background myself, and still, I'm still working in education. I've worked in education for 18 years. One of the things that fascinates me about what you're talking about, one of the things I loved about being a teacher was not only being able to share what I know, but I felt like I was learning more every day working with my students. I learned from them and what they brought to the table because they all had unique talents. I learned from trying to communicate and reach them, to set off the light bulb and that type of thing. Are you finding that's a rich and rewarding experience, like being able to kind of go, I'm working in this right now, and what a great outlet it is for me to kind of explore this talent this way. Are you having that kind of experience?
Oh yeah, it's awesome because I've been doing it long enough where I don't really think about what I do. I just do it. So when I had to basically create lesson plans and figure out what to teach and how to teach it, like I couldn't tell you. I mean, I have to really think about like what a key command is to do something, but if I put my hands on the keyboard, it'll just happen. It kind of made me go back and think about like how I do things and why I do them. And it's actually changed my process a little bit or actually in many different ways. These students, they're all like really creative and they're, interested. And I've learned quite a few things from them. It's awesome. I love it.
That's incredible. I did not know that I've heard about various different programs to break into comics. To hear that there's master's programs out there and the availability to go through that. I think for people who are really looking to break in and to do it the right way, that's such a great way to have foundational skills to support that process, because I think that's the piece that probably wasn't there in the past. People had to learn heavily on the job without having the opportunity, unless somebody was mentoring you, to really guide you through the process of like, this is what you need to do from A to B in order to make this work in time frames that companies will consider you an asset.
Well, I mean, that's, you guys have talked with David Barron. That's learning how to color. He mentored me. I sat behind him every day for 6 months. Then I would color at night, and then he would tell me all the things that I did wrong, and I would keep going, and like that was really the only process of learning how to do it. So it's cool because I'm actually teaching my students how to color and how to do all these things, and I'm hoping it adds value to like what they're doing, because I don't know how many of them are going to come out of this and do mainstream comics. Some of them definitely will, but it's just I just want to give them as many tools as possible to do what they want to do, and I have to think about what I do, and they teach me things all the time. So it's a great experience. I love being a teacher. It's been a really awesome job.
That's fantastic. It's that honestly, I'm geeking out about that just because of the fact that it's so my lens into what I do on a daily basis, and it's great. It's great to see that connected once again to this medium that I love so much. That's awesome.
Cool.
You mentioned David, and I do want to shout out. I just saw this week that he got a Valiant exclusive. Which is I think super. I was like geeking out. I'm like, oh man, I love his work over there too. It's always great when there's people who I truly enjoy what they do. I like to know where I can see the work, and experience it. So when these things are happening, I love announcements because I'm like, oh great, this is where I'm going to see that creator. Because I love characters just like every other geeky comic fan. That's a draw for me. But it's also, I follow creators to projects. When they've connected with me, it's like, I want to know what they're doing next. I want to know where I can get more of that work and see what they do for me every month. So I love when there's big geeky press releases come out, because they were doing all kinds of kooky Valiant announcements. And I love that stuff. I eat it up.
Yeah, they do a great job. And I know David is really happy working with them. I'm doing, every once in a while I help him out with a book, or I do a book, or I'm doing a lot of covers for them. They're great to work with. It's a great company, and they're challenging the mainstream. The only thing that's kind of lacking is I wish they had a Netflix show like Daredevil or or something on Hulu. I think Quantum and Woody would be an amazing Netflix type show.
I would kill to watch that,
right?
Because it's so buddy cop. I mean, in its premise, it's the two of them. You want to smack Woody up the head. I mean, half the
yeah. I've got to color a bunch of Quantum and Woody. It's a fun book, and I don't know if you guys noticed. Like, I remember the Quantum and Woody from the original run.
Yes.
I actually they finished that up, and I got to color the last 4 or 5 issues of the finished up story. So it was pretty cool. It was kind of crazy, like how different it actually was from the current Quantum and Woody, but it was really interesting. A lot of long hair and fake chest plates.
I was glad they did that, because that was one of those breakout series back in the day when it came out, and it really had a cult fan following.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ones, because that came out of Acclaim, the whole Acclaim Valiant run, and was really one of those titles that it was like, wow, this is unique, because it really wasn't from the original Valiant, and that's one of the things that I loved that this new Valiant company has done, really taken the best foundation pieces that they were able to gather, the best resources, the best characters, I should say, and concepts from both runs and pulled them into this. Man, Quantum of Woody is phenomenal. I'm glad they finished that, though, because as a fan, I was like, oh, that's really nice, because too often series have ended where they didn't get that finish, and you didn't get to see how the story wrapped up, and I really appreciated the fact that they didn't just go, well, I want people focused on our current continuity with Quantum and Woody. They really did a fan service by doing that, and I really appreciated it as a fan. I'm like, oh, that was really cool that they decided to go that route.
Well, they're really good with their fans. They really want to, they cater to like what they want, and they're, it's good stuff. Like I said, I read pretty much all that stuff that comes out, Bloodshot, Rye, and that's a whole another thing. The whole 4001, and I'm doing some really crazy covers for that, drawn by Ryan Lee, who, man, he does some killer art. I'm lucky enough to be paired up with him on most of his covers. But we're doing like this crazy, I think it's 12 covers combined as one image. It's insane.
Wow. I love that kind of stuff, though. I hope they do that in a poster in the future, because I've got one for Starman, James Robinson's Starman series. And it was the one where they were the interlocking 6 covers, where it was the Tony Harris and Alex Ross kind of covers put together. And I love stuff like that. So, I mean, if Valiant does that and they offer that as a giant poster, I have that. I got it framed and matted, because I really like having unique comic artwork on my walls. It just kind of makes my office kind of, I mean, obviously I'm a geek, so, the geek culture, it's great to just see it everywhere. And I would kill for something like that as a poster, just to have that framed, because the characters mean so much to me over there, to be able to have that, something like that from that whole 4001 concept, because I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's really fun. I really like, I'm a sci-fi nut too. I pretty much sit here and color comics and listen to audiobooks, from, the Culture series, or, Dune or whatever, I'm listening just bam to bam, one book after another while I'm working. And so the whole 4001 is really cool. I like that concept. And also thinking you have this universe, and then let's extrapolate from here to this, this other period, and tell a story there. So yeah, I like that. I liked, at DC, I liked Legion. That was a great book.
Oh yeah.
Just the stuff in the future is always really interesting to me. So it's all good stuff.
Now, when you're looking at projects and when you're approaching it, and you have a legacy character, whether it's the Bat Family, whether it's over in Valiant, wherever, or Legion even, when you're looking at these things, do you approach them, I want to say, differently? Or, if it's somebody who's brand new, who's never, a brand new character or a new creation on something?
I don't get to deal with something new very often. I do at Valiant. I got to color some things that didn't have any colorways before, because they're new characters. But DC doesn't put out a lot of new characters, and when they do, it's on this Batman, Robin, Eternal, Bluebird or Harper Row. There's a couple new, fairly new characters in there, but they tend to be introduced in the big books, and then they spread out from there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the big creators do those things. And then I get a color guide and I color them.
Would you like to be one of those people who are on that first creation of a hero, or a first creation on, say, a supporting character, a brand new supporting character for, Dick Grayson, and, you're in on that ground floor of that person, or a brand new creation of a superhero who the title's going to be named after?
Sure. I would love to. I mean, imagine if they did coloring the way that they do now, back when the Punisher was first introduced. And I did that first issue, and now I can say I colored the very first Punisher. That would be great, wouldn't it? That would be awesome.
Oh yeah.
You guys made your mark here in this series, though, with some characters that are very much fan demands in the New 52, because they're characters that have been reimagined for the New 52 that we're worried about. Are they even going to show up? Cassandra Cain coming back. David Cain, Orphan.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of Cassandra Cain. I really liked her Batgirl. Yeah, and the whole concept behind her. So, and if you're asking me what's going to happen in the future, I have no idea for Rebirth. I really don't.
No, and I'm not even saying that. When I'm looking at this, right, I'm actually looking at, as I'm making these comments, I'm looking at issue 17, and I'm seeing David Kane standing there, orphan, and it was the reveal in this series was that David Kane, orphan, is actually David Kane. I don't know why I had a brain freeze and I didn't see that coming, but it was great to see. There were certain things when the New 52 rebooted that weren't, because of the compressed Batman time frame, weren't in existence. This storyline with Mother has provided the opportunity to bring back some really cool concepts, like Cassandra Cain and her backstory, getting to its roots, who that character was, where she came from, her background, why she doesn't talk. I like that those have been reimagined for a new audience, while at the same time putting in the balance of the elements that, to your point, we all loved when she was first introduced way back when. So it was great to see, and for you to be able to have a piece of, I'm like, wow, these are really some key issues for me, because we're putting back into play a lot of the reasons why Cassandra Cain was socially awkward, why you found her endearing in spite of everything that she's gone through. You know, she was trained to be an assassin.
She learned the language of violence.
Yes.
She didn't know how to speak. And in fact, people wouldn't speak around her originally, like when she was first introduced, because they didn't want to, lessen her fighting ability by, letting her learn how to speak. I really like that character. Like, I think I was working at Wildstorm when she first came about, and I was actually scanning in those pages, those black and white pages, and she had that stitched over mouth Batgirl suit. And I was stoked. I really liked her, and I'm glad she's back.
I am too. I'm glad there's certain parts that they really needed to put back into the Batman mythos, and she was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and Spoiler's back. I know that was a really contentious issue for a lot of people. In fact, well, I probably shouldn't talk about this issue because it's not out yet. Anyways.
Sorry. Yeah, well, in other words, we've got something to look forward to.
We do. I honestly colored a few people I've never colored before, and which is kind of crazy in the DC universe, because I've colored pretty much everybody. Like, really.
Especially with things like you mentioned, like the new 50. I mean, you mentioned 52 projects like Trinity, which we talked to you back when Trinity was going on. Trinity, like, who wasn't in Trinity?
No, that's really. I mean, after that book, I pretty much had colored everything. It was a fun book too. It was cool working with Jesus Moreno and then doing those like Pacheco covers.
Yes,
I had a lot of fun with that. I know, I just did another Batman issue. I'm looking through my files right now. See, Batman. But I think it was with Talon and the Owl.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, I'm going to bring it up. It's in my one of my external hard drives. I'm at the point where I have to actually save stuff off. It's kind of sad. I can't just have everything on my computer at all times.
Oh, well, that's a good problem to have. Only in the sense that means you're in demand, which is, I like hearing that, because I'm like, oh, this is great. That means I like the fact that I see your name so frequently. I really enjoy seeing your work in so many interesting places, and often being surprised. I'm like, oh, cool, he did this. It's like neat.
Yeah, I've been a freelance colorist for 10 years now, and except for when I first started, I really haven't been on just one book for a long time. Like, I was doing JSA for a while, but then after that, I pretty much have just been freelance, book to book to book to book. And maybe I don't really have some stability, which kind of sucks, but man, it's kind of fun, doing something different every book. I'm just looking through my stuff here. I go from It Girl for Image to JSA to Mars Attacks to Earth 2 to Bloodshot, Archer and Armstrong. I mean, I've got to work on a lot of different stuff, and maybe I don't really have that the stability of being on a one book from a full run, but I do really enjoy doing something different every month or every couple weeks.
I loved It Girl. I'm a big Michael Allred geek, and
cool.
I was so glad to see that spin off and done so well. It was really a fun book.
Cool. Yeah, Jamie did a great job writing it. Now he's an editor at DC in the Vertigo line.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and Mike drew a big chunk of it. Mike Norton.
Yes.
Who? So last time I talked to you, was I doing Battle Pug yet?
Yes, I think you had just started last time I talked to you.
Okay, cool. Because we're on our fifth. We're finishing up our 5th year.
Has it been 5 years already?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're finishing up our 5th year. It'll be our 5th hardback because Dark Horse collects everything we do every year as a hardback, and then we're going to wrap it up and then do something else with it. Those plans are. We're going to announce those at some point. Yeah, Battle Pug's been great. I mean, we've won an Eisner, we've won 2 Harveys, we've won a Shell d'Or. We've won every award in comics for Battle Pug. It's pretty awesome. Like Mike Norton is an amazing artist. He's a great writer, and he's super fun. And I'm just glad, I've got my hands in that pie, because I do it every week. I've been coloring it every week for 5 years. And it's a fun gig.
The Battle Pug as well is available. The hardcover collections, when they come out, they also release them on that Dark Horse Digital for the digital app, because I end up getting it that way because I really like having the collected edition of it. So it's nice to be able to get it digitally and read it on my iPad. And I love the ability to kind of spread the artwork out and be able to explore it on the digital medium. So that's how I end up getting it through the digital purchase, where it's the same thing that's in the hardcover, but it's collected digitally, and that's through the Dark Horse app. So it's available that method as well. I highly recommend it. I love Battle Pug.
Well, cool. Mike's usually really cool with whatever I do. So I get to experiment, have fun. It's a great experience.
It's great to see a project like that 5 years later. It's still in existence, still doing really well. That's something that's really important nowadays. I'm a big fan of the work of Terry Moore, for example, and it's great to see projects like that nowadays when comics have got such a great diversity as far as the amount of product that are available right now and the amount of companies. It's funny. I think the word independent now is almost too broad of a category in how it's used.
Well, unfortunately, for most people, independent means everything besides DC and Marvel.
Right.
Which really isn't a good description anymore,
No, and I think we almost need another category, I think, for, and I don't know that even categories would help at this point, because I think what people really need to be more aware of is that there's so much diverse product out there. I think it's really hard to go into a comic shop and not find something that you like.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for people who maybe haven't touched the medium before, that's where trades and hardcovers, I think, are pretty key. Having those in bookstores, just having another outlet for a unique audience, because I think there's so much product out there, and artists and creators are trying so many different types of storytelling methods. Neil Gaiman, I think it was, that said something about how comics are not a genre, they're a delivery method. And I think that was very telling about that, because I think it's so true.
Well, it really is. I mean, it's a visual medium with words, and I love the format. I think in that format. I was actually my mom's a principal at a middle school, and I was just teaching sequential art to 5th graders over the last couple of weeks, and it's such a cool way to express thoughts or imagery or a story. And not that I don't read long books sometimes with a lot of words, but graphic novels or comics can be so expressive. It's amazing. So I obviously I love the medium. I love working in it. So
when I'm looking at the opening pages of issue 17, and one of the things that I really enjoy about comics is they're flat pages, but there's this sense of a three-dimensional nature to everything. Like the cars, I'm looking at the St. Hadrian's School, and you see the cars that are in the foreground, and the car that's in this, it almost is like a second layer, and then you've got the building in the background. And there is this sense of depth to it. That's got to be something for you. And when I'm looking at David Kane with his fingers on the glass, there is this sense of the glass is there, and there's a pressure point to it, and you can actually see the pressure indentations on his fingers. I really enjoy Jim references on the podcast a lot that he does an art read through, and I find that how I handle that is very different for each book, and it's based on my experience really with my first read through of the book, as far as how I approach my second and third go around and really taking a look at the issues. But I love looking at tiny details like that, like perspective, pressure points and different things like that, and even the way that the glass kind of feels over his face. How do you, as an artist, when when you're given the pencils and inks of that, I would imagine, you referenced the fact that it's kind of just my work and I've done this for so long. How do you get yourself to the point though where you're looking at that and going, I want to make sure that I'm accentuating depth, I'm accentuating special effects, I'm accentuating his finger pressure points on there, because those were done so well and they stood out to me.
It's kind of funny because it's kind of ass backwards when you think about it, because I'm taking a two-dimensional drawing and making it three-dimensional. Mm-hmm. Where, like in a lot of pop culture, like everything's done in 3D. It's already done in 3D. But we're actually taking those flat images. The first thing I have to do is make sure the story is told. But after that, I want to create depth and texture and focus. And so like that's, if you look at David Kane, then he's got a backlight. It's lit from behind. Mm-hmm. And taking that shoulder and making it look like it's a rounded object. The same with the cars on the top, where like, and honestly, and I'll tell you, like, cars are something I hate to work on because I'm from Modesto, which I don't know if you know where that is, but it's the home of American graffiti.
Oh, cool.
George Lucas. And I worked, one of my first jobs was working at a screen print shop, and all we did was like classic car stuff. It's so hard to do those shines and those glows and like the reflections of those cars. So I dread cars more than anything else. So I'm actually happy with these, but for the most part, I hate them.
Well, I would imagine some of the difficulty comes from shadowing on cars as well, because you're taking, in the case of I'm looking at the red sports car, and it has, so many of the different modifications or extras that would come on a sports car. The thing that you nailed that I really loved was not just the color of the car, but the shadowing on the car. I thought that really added a sense of depth to me, was being able to, know that there's a light source there and the car is reacting to that light source. That stuff takes time. It's why I do additional read-throughs, because you don't notice those a lot of times in your first read-through, because you're being drawn into the story and enjoying the experience. And that stuff really should be something where you're just kind of like, everything feels real, so you keep moving along in the story. It's fun for me to go back afterwards and go, oh man, that's why that was so cool. And that part's really, I get a lot of value out of going back through and kind of analyzing what my experience was like and why it got there. And it's stuff like that stands out.
Cool. I'll tell you, like, I was a commercial artist before I started doing comic book coloring, and I was actually a watercolorist. And the thing about when you're creating art, or especially commercial art, you're trying to make people think they see something, but you don't necessarily have to draw the entire thing. And coloring is kind of like that. Like, you'll notice, like, on that red car, there's like a highlight or two, there's some highlights, and then there's a lot of flat color. And that's kind of the thing. It's about focus more than like trying to render a perfect car. Because I can spend 4 hours in that car, but who cares? It's just a red car in a parking lot, right?
But it sets an establishing of where the location is. What kind of money is this? Like, when you're looking at sports cars and things like that out there, it sets the tone of, not only is this a school, but it's an affluent school. There's a certain point to that when you go to what's going on the inside. And kind of like, all right, there's some money back at all this nonsense.
Yeah, I haven't read Grayson. I know, like, The Huntress is part of the Grayson, or the whole Spiral thing. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm also super stoked that Midnighter is part of it, because I'm a big Wildstorm fan. So it's anytime I can see there's a Wildstorm character in the DC universe, I always really enjoy it. So I'm a little behind on what's going on with that whole Spiral universe, and I think it's kind of coming to an end. I think Jeremy Cox is coloring that, who is an amazing colorist. So I need to catch up. I'm not on the DC comp list anymore, so I don't get every book published every month, which kind of sucks.
Grayson is a must read. There's titles that I would recommend to people, as far as saying, the nice part about this is it's a contained series. Uh-huh. And yes, it's Dick Grayson as a spy, but the spy world has changed because Dick Grayson's a part of it. Dick Grayson isn't changed by the spy world. And so it's everything. If you're a fan of the character of Nightwing wing at all.
Totally.
There's a tremendous balance of everything you love about Dick Grayson as a character being thrust into this world. He is an agent of change in this world because of who he is. That part, it's just awesome. It totally is. I'm a longtime geeky Dick Grayson fan, and when he's done right, and this is a book that does him. Grayson's a book that does him right, and you guys did a tremendous job with him in this, because as a fan who's been reading that, I just really felt like this was a part of that. It was a side story in that world, which is hard to do. When you've got a character.
Who was your favorite character in this series? Besides like one of the main characters, like who did you really enjoy, or like their part in things?
I think, if we're talking about characters, Cassandra Cain was probably the home run for me. I mean, I know she's a main character, so that's kind of like copying to that one, but I think that is a character who I loved so much. You get worried when the character's rebooted that you're going to lose some of what you loved about them, and I thought this reimagining of her really went back to the core of what made her cool and didn't leave out anything. Obviously, I think that's because of the relationship with Harper Row. And I think that the two are the yin and yang of that whole story. So if you having them together.
Wait till number 27.
I'm excited. I mean, those two have really been. It's hard to pick, because your question is a very difficult one because of how many cool characters are in this, and of course, Mother. I think Mother as the main bad guy. I just talk about somebody who's
psychological thing where like she uses children that have been like traumatized by loss, and then there's that whole analogy where Batman pretty much does the same thing. And so is one a good thing, one's a bad thing? It's been a really interesting complex story, and answering those questions.
The one thing DC's done real well in the Batman universe is, it'd be very easy to just go to, the classics, because there's so many great villains in the Batman mythos. But doing the Court of Owls, for example, and adding them into the mix, characters like Mother and Bloom in the current book. Mother, to me, is one of those where I'm like, what a unique concept. It goes back to the early years of Batman and Robin. And in the New 52, it kind of gives us a lens into that, because we were kind of jumped into this idea that there's this 5 years of Batman's career that happened where all the Robin, we went from Dick Grayson to Jason Todd to Tim Drake, and then to Damian, his son, but we didn't get to see that play out the way that you had in the previous universe. So this story was great because it went back and introduced this Mother as being somebody who they originally encountered in the early years and has an effect today. And I really love, she just feels evil.
Yes.
Yeah, she really does. And there's also like the kind of, there's a symmetry with Helena, the Huntress, and her school for children, and like what is she doing? Mm-hmm. Is she teaching a bunch of assassins? I mean, is she evil? Not evil, but is there something similar between her and Mother? Like, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's been a really good story. I really enjoyed it. Just as a fan, not only just as a creator. So I'll tell you, like I asked that question. My favorite characters are the Red Hood, Tim Drake. Those are, I don't know why, but I just love those two guys. They're so opposites, but they're both Robin, or have been Robin.
I think Red Hood has really benefited in this story from advancement, and I do think it is due to the relationship with Tim Drake, because he's a character that I think what they did was, I think in the previous universe, he was a character that was suffering from an identity crisis. When they brought him back, they didn't quite know, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he somewhere in the middle?
Well, they brought him back for a story, and the story was really good. Yes. Like I like reading it, and then the animated version actually is really good too. I don't know if you guys have seen the animated movie of it, but then they didn't really know what to do with him, I think, for a little while. But I think he's kind of come into his own. I really like his character
with Hood and with Tim Drake, both of them, because those are two characters that I really loved in the previous universe. That you have moments where they really shine and moments where you're like, and then it is those kind of some fluctuation, but throughout Eternal we've really got to see both of those characters really become some, you get these glimpses, you see that person that I absolutely loved before is still there. There they are, right there, strong and standing tall. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the Jason Todd I want. This is the Tim Drake I want. So yeah, I agree with those two. The love for those two in this series.
Yeah, I did issue 9 and 10 drawn by Rogue Antonio. Man, his art was really cool and it rendered really nice. And it was pretty much just a buddy book with Red Hood and Tim Drake, and then Bane is in it, and then Azrael shows up, and it was a fun book to work on. So,
knowing your color work like I do, it's kind of you mentioned art teams that you're working with, because you're working with more than one art team. Does that make any, I don't know if difficult's the right word, but do you have to change anything that you're doing? Because one of the things that I've really loved is the consistency of color work. That kind of is one of those connecting threads that I mentioned, that kind of, there's been a consistency in this series of a tone and a feel for the characters that I think the various art teams that have worked on this have managed to maintain that. How do you deal with working with different art teams? Because I would imagine when you're working with a different penciler and inker, and then you're the other piece of the puzzle in that art team to make it all gel together, there's a connecting thread that you want to establish as far as this is the style of this series, and this is the tone and direction and kind of color guide that I'm going off of. Because it's really great when you're inside Spiral's headquarters and there's a certain color shading to the lighting that's inside there, that the reds that makes me feel like I'm in this facility and all that. Is it hard to shift between different pencilers and inkers when you're doing a book?
In this case with this book, they were close enough where I could color it the same way. I kind of color stuff based on the art or the rendering style. Like if I'm doing a Butch Geist book, it tends to be a little more chunky with a lot of texture. But like with all these Batman Eternal books, I did a lot of rendering, and I could pretty much color it all the same way. And the thing is, like if they had, and I think that kind of comes back to the publisher or to the editors, they found artists that were similar enough that it wasn't distracting from book to book, which is hard. I mean, every artist has their own style. It's just part of the deal. Like I know I listened to your guys' reviews where like a colorist had filled in or something, and you found it jarring. That might have been a long time ago, but
no, that happens.
Yeah, and it's because we color how we color. Not to say that every once in a while I'll get a cover from somebody and they'll say, "Can you color this like Dave Stewart?" And my response would be like, "Why don't you just ask Dave Stewart to color it?"
Right.
Yeah, but you can push things one way or the other to kind of keep things similar enough that it's not going to be jarring. And luckily, most of the artists I dealt with were similar enough that I could make it work, and I don't think anything got taken away by any differences. But to your broader question about that, like every page of art I work on or cover or whatever, like I color to the style. Like if I'm doing like a George Perez this is something that I'm really stoked about, because I do a lot of the showcase covers.
Cool.
So I get to do Ditko and Kirby. I did the Muhammad Ali boxing Superman recolor.
Oh, which I loved. You know what? I didn't even get a chance to tell you, but I loved that because I was a big geeky fan of that growing up. And man, was the redone version of that came out so well. Yeah,
it was cool. It was super cool. And I get to I think I have I'm doing a DC a Legends book, and it's like the JLA. It's a John Byrne cover that I have to do tonight. So it's super cool. I mean, I get to color some really big names and awesome art. I did a bunch of Swamp Thing collected editions, and I did some of the original Batman collected stuff with Bob Kane, and it's pretty cool.
One of the things I'm doing is I'm getting both digital and the paper. I'm initially buying my paper. Then when we talk about a book, I'll pick up the digital because it's easier for me to have the digital work right in front of me. And one of the things I went through with these issues, I pulled up and I was holding the paper next to the digital. I wanted to see how things compared. And I got to tell you, each page, whether it was on the digital or on the paper side, this stuff was popping nicely. And I'm like, because normally I couldn't imagine how you could, with two different presentation formats, still having the images look the same. Is there something you guys are doing differently? Because I know when I look at older comics, it's not the same when I hold up, side by side comparisons.
Jim, I'm surprised that there isn't that much of a difference, because I'll tell you, it's never going to look much better than it looks on my screen when I send it in. Mm-hmm. And when they take that file and they put it to digital, it's pretty much the same image. But when it goes to print, there's so many variables that, a lot of stuff gets lost, paper quality, how it's printed. Yeah. So that's awesome that you're that happy with the print job. I think that, that when you look at it like on a digital screen, that's how I'm coloring it. And I think that's pretty much the best you're going to see it. So it's cool. I mean, the thing about comic book printing is that it's done by a corporation. And they're sending stuff out and they're printing so much a week or a month. They're trying to deal with cost and they're trying to deal with make things work and deadlines and stuff. And because of that, it's not like an artist putting out art. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
so it's unfortunate, but sometimes it makes sense to hey, let's do these 10,000 books on this this way instead of this other way because there's a cost break or we'll get it sooner or something. And that's just the nature of the business. I mean, that's just how it is. So, and I think it's probably always been that way printing wise. So
now when you're going through, it's like your color palette has to be dramatically different now than what the old school, art had with, especially just because you have this digital palette. I in my head I look at it as if they had a crayon box with 64 colors. Well, now you have a crayon box with 1,000,000 colors. You have variations that you can go with this. And my mindset, I would get too bogged down in the minutia of what shade of red do I want to go with, where I wouldn't get anything done. How do you sit there and focus and you've got these beautiful color palettes, and it's not just you're not just doing red. You're doing red variations for part of this sign and then part of this sign and then part of this sign, 4 or 5 different variations of red in one little image. And I'm like, that kind of stuff is what amazes me, that you're able to pick that and focus that and actually get this done.
Well, I just did a bunch of Earth 2 stuff. Superman's cape is red, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if there's fire, or there might be a yellow glow, or if it's dark, or it's in a room without light, it might be a blue tone. So you have that base color, and then you use mood tones or mood colors to establish part of the story. But then now, there was this Justice League International cover that I did, and it was the Flash standing in front of Superman. So, red costume in front of a red cape, right? Well, you need to make those two characters pop against each other so that you just don't lose the Flash in Superman's cape. So you maybe put a little bit more highlights on the Flash than you normally would do. So he pops out from Superman's cape, or you let Superman's cape get a little darker so it falls back a little bit, so it's not competing with the Flash. So because there's a lot of that in comics where you need to make sure that the characters differentiate from each other and the story's being told. And if you're one of the recent books I just worked on, there's a volcano thing going on and it's lava. And so suddenly there's all this red and orange light coming up. You can use that artistically to focus on certain characters at different parts, and then you can decide to put a more light on the background or a little less to help push and pull. And that's just something you learn over time how to do.
How much factor does time play in special effects? Because you're mentioning Superman's cape, it's in the different tones. It's something that throughout this book you see tone changes to represent different light sourcing, and it's something talking with various color artists that we've talked to on our show, I've always been amazed at just how many tiny, and I'm going to put that tiny in quotes because there's so many of them, the tiny little elements that go into an atmosphere of what you're viewing in front of you. If you're looking at Cairo, Egypt, for example, in some of the later pages where you see Batman in that sequence, you're in an outdoor environment where there's a lot of different light sourcing that can be affecting, and a lot of different things that will be affecting shadows. Those are things that you have to take into account in order to establish this sense of reality that we're witnessing in front of us, including, blood effects and different things like that are happening at that moment that really establish quite a bit bit of what's going on here. Smoke effects coming from the gun. I mean, all of these things are, I'm saying tiny details, but I mean, there's such a vast array of them. How do you balance out time to do all of those cool things? Because I would imagine you have to go like, okay, these are priority items. These are wish list items. Am I right or wrong on that and how you do that?
You're right. You're totally right. I what I do is I tend to render all the characters first. So skin and costumes. And then from there, I do background. So because the backgrounds usually are something that goes pretty fast for the most part. You know, like smoke, you're doing texture or fire or a floor. Those things, like they actually go really fast. I'll admit, like on this, are you talking about 17 or 18 mostly? Probably 17?
I'm looking at 17 right now.
Yeah, there was, maybe I had a couple too many beers. There was like one of these pages I think I spent like 6 hours on, and you probably can't tell the difference from the one that I spent 2 hours on. It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where you want to create emphasis. And I had this really awesome art teacher at one point, and he was getting on another student because the student was like drawing a super detailed, exact drawing of this photo, and the art teacher was like, "If you want a photo, take another photo. But if you want to do a painting, do a painting." And because a painting is interpretive, you're expressing an idea or a concept, but you don't necessarily have to render it perfectly. So. So there.
No, that's cool. No, I mean, that's really cool. And I imagined a lot of that was the case. I was in awe of the amount of visual effects throughout these issues.
Yeah, like sometimes they're really tedious. Sometimes they're really easy. It's kind of funny, man. It's not easy for me to tell you like, yeah, that's an easy one. That's a hard one because sometimes fire is easy. I actually made a really cool brush in Photoshop for 27, where I went out on the web, found this exact effect, and then made a new Photoshop brush. And I'm probably going to use it now for this particular thing, like from now on, because I was really happy with it. So it's just. It's hard to say, like they don't necessarily take a lot of time, but sometimes they do.
When it's a weekly book, do you get the pages in order? Do you get them in bundles? Like because I guess, and I keep saying weekly book, I guess I'm making an assumption that what a weekly book, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, what a weekly book looks like to you is going to be different than what a monthly book would look like to you. In the sense of how the timing of pages would arrive to you would be. Am I right or wrong on that? Because I am admittedly making an assumption, and I don't know.
I think you're right. I mean, honestly, I don't think I've gotten an entire book before I started coloring it in years. Most publishers now are like working on such a tight deadline that they'll ask if I want to do it. I'll say yes. And then I'll get a couple pages, and they won't necessarily be number 1, 2, and 3. They could be like number 2, number 7, and number 19. And then you get them in batches, which is hard. It's really hard to color like that way because in a perfect world I'd get all 20 or 22 pages. I could read the script in my mind, create like a plan and a mood and an atmosphere, and then put that down. But sometimes, and it's happened before, where like I got to page 2, 7, and 19. I do page 19, and then like when I get the next batch, I have to recolor it or do a bunch of changes because it's just not going to work. And that's just kind of the nature of the industry right now.
The flow, and I guess the compliment that I was going to give you off of this one is the flow of these issues was something that I really enjoyed because there was a nice thematic build, and it's told so well through the dialogue and the art. I think that to me is when you're working with professionals who understand how to deliver that. Because I'm looking at like not just the special effects, facial expression, the way that drama is being told emotionally through characters' reactions. Because you go from full faces like with David Kane and Dick Grayson and Helena, even the boy reacting to what's going on, with Mother setting up that whole situation where, this is a test of Batman, and he basically revealed, guess what, he's faking you out. I mean, that whole sequence was playing out there, but you go to those full faces where they're telling a big story. Then Batman's cowl is subtle differences, and it's his mouth that really is so much the piece that tells you what his emotional mood is. That part really I marvel at, that you're really dealing with a penciler, inker, and you really trying to make sure that you're building a mood in all of those pieces. And if any of that goes wrong and it doesn't lead to a final product that we as the readers see that mood, that whole intention is lost. And it was such an important part. Those expressions were such an important part, I think, of all of these sequences, from the interrogation of David Kane straight on through the emotional drama with Mother and the boy and Orphan and Batman. I just really loved the way that the emotional drama played out through their expression.
Well, I think I was kind of lucky because like the art is spot on. I mean, it's really well done. It's beautiful. So it's not that I wasn't trying to make Mother look happy when she's drawn sad. Like it's all drawn really, really nicely, and it's beautiful stuff. So it wasn't hard for me to just, help emphasize the story and try to create it like something interesting and, dare I say, a little pretty. I like pretty stuff. Mm-hmm. One thing I did do on this is like I made that sky like orange and red, and I'm always trying to gear it away with that because like it seems like DC's anti-red sky because of anytime you see a red sky, it's crisis.
Yes, yeah.
But they let me do it. So yeah, like it was such great stuff to begin with. Like I was just vibing off what was there. So it's not like I had to do much. I took what was there and just kept going.
Do you think that's part of the responsibility of each of the stages of the process is understanding how to accentuate what is there and to really build off it and not lose it? Because I could imagine that at any point in time before it gets to you, and even when it gets to you, and I don't mean you specifically, I just mean the different people that touch the artwork, it would be very easy for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing to be the piece of that puzzle that loses that intention. And I think I appreciate when it comes together because it's really apparent when it doesn't, and when you see it when it does, I'm like, it speaks a lot to the talent involved in understanding how to keep that flow going and just keep accentuating it instead of losing it.
I find that people don't notice what I do for the most part, and I kind of think of it as a compliment because it's not taking them out of the story, it's not jarring them like away from the thing. So I think like for the most part, people in comics when you're doing it right, you're not really getting noticed because it's a delivery system, like you said, like it's doing what it's supposed to do. So, but there can be times like I've seen really bad lettering where like the tails bugged me, or it happens. Like, and this is no fault of the colors at the time, but I was I went to my dad's attic and looked at some of my old comics, and I was looking at this X-Men Star Trek crossover, and it was the early days of digital coloring, and man, I could barely look at it. Because it was so jarring to me, but but it was a product of its time. Like it was probably like the best thing on the block at the time. But now it's it was a hard time, and that happens every once in a while. But for the most part, I think the quality of comic books are really high.
I agree. I honestly, I totally agree.
Independent stuff, everything, right?
So one of the cool things that I have an issue with as a comic fan is, a lot of times you'll see people complaining about the medium nowadays. And there's nothing wrong. Like if you pick up a book or a series and it's just not your cup of tea and you've invested in that, there's nothing wrong with ranting, that this did not go the way that I had expected. And I totally get that being a thing. But I often question when I see a fan who's constantly complaining about comics. I'm like, well, at some point in time, isn't there a book you're digging? Like, why are you still collecting or why are you still reading? Because so much product out there, to your point, Alan, through the diverse amount of companies out there that are publishing unique product, the jump off point, I'm not digging this book, the ease to jump to something that might be your taste is like changing channels on television. I'm not liking a TV show. I'm not going to keep watching it. I'm going to switch to something else and find something that matches my palate. In comics, you have such a opportunity now to really grab something that matches your taste.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there's people that are always going to complain, sure. And they're just who they are. But they're part of our community, and it's just how they express themselves, and they're reading those But to what you're saying, like sometimes I know some collectors that they're such a number person where they're collecting number 93 and 94 and 95, and they're 5 issues past the point they wanted to stop, but they can't stop because they're collecting those numbers, like those issues, and they're complaining about it because they don't want to stop being part of that. And that's one reason they're having a hard time. But some people just can't break away, because if they could, there's so much awesome stuff out there. With tons of different publisher labels. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's really just a great time to be a fan. I love the variety because I grew up loving this medium. I love that there's more options for me now as far as storytelling choice, because I really love this delivery method. And I love that people are sometimes doing long-form hardcovers, and some people are doing mini-series and the monthly and the weekly. And I like the digital. Some of the books are crafted for a weekly digital release where it's a smaller snippet of a story. I like the experimentation of different timings of delivery with comics because I think you can do things that are really interesting. It's what I like about film and television and all that as well. To your point earlier when you were talking about creators and people not always understanding what people's roles are and or how a page winds up being the completed page that you're looking at. I think the same thing is true of film. Like, I'm a big film buff. I enjoy film. Do I understand the process of filmmaking? Not in the slightest. I just know what I really enjoy, and I marvel at it, and I know when I see things that I'm like, oh, that's unique. What a cool thing that they did there. But could I tell you who I should be looking to behind the scenes that made lighting choices, that made set choices and did set design, and who's doing the cinematography, and then those type of things? And I'm going to throw out a bunch of terms that I don't know really what they mean. But I know that I like those
that
things.
way. I mean, you could be a film geek that like super into cinematography or like certain aspects of film, and you could be that way with comics as well. But I think as comics as a medium, okay, it's been around since like the late 30s, early 40s, right? Mm-hmm. This pretty much the same format and size. You read like in a particular way. Every once in a while, creator or publisher will challenge the reader to experience it in a different way, whether it's just horizontally versus vertically, or digitally. You're talking about like a company like Madefire that's doing comics that are like motion comics. Mm-hmm. I think that we're at this time where we're lucky as fans because there's so many different things we can experience or get into and enjoy. It's a pretty awesome time to be a comic book fan.
It really is, because I think the medium has, with the different delivery method out there, like the fact that you can get your monthly books, you can get your digital books, you can get hardcovers and soft covers at bookstores. I think the potential to reach new audiences is there. I hope that there's more experimentation in the coming years with how to reach new fans, because I think the diverse lineup really lends itself to being an excellent jump-on point to a new audience. I think that there's different genres that are being explored now in comics that I haven't seen explored to the kind of depth that we are now. And I'd really love to see more, people pulled in. You mentioned sci-fi before. I think for your sci-fi audience that maybe hasn't touched comics because they look at it as mainly a superhero thing, I think there's a lot of books that skirt those lines of being really deep science fiction stories that would, really target that audience and would be just another outlet for their kind of joy. I think the video game audience is like target audience for comics. I really do. I think their storytelling sensibilities really match the comic book community.
Oh yeah, I mean, the screenshots are basically, it could basically be frames. I did a little work for City of Heroes. That was a big video game, and I did some art for comic book coloring for like one of their advertisements to make it, so it wasn't just like a 3D rendered thing. And there's a lot of crossover there with a lot of the visual mediums.
I had one other question about just color work in general. I mean, and design of an issue. I was looking at issues 17 and 20, and both of them had pivotal moments at the end, or surprise moments. The one in 17 was David Kane with the kind of impending reveal that he knows who Cassandra killed and was implying that there was some form of connection to Harper Row. And then in issue number 20, there was the one at the end with the reveal of Damien being there with his little pet. Both were big reveals. Do you, when you get those pages, do you approach when you know, like, these are going to be pivotal moments for fans when they hit them and they just go, whoa. Either it's going to be a moment that leads them to the next issue or a moment where it was like the shock surprise at the end. Do you approach those differently in mood and tone when you do them? Especially with the fact you were talking earlier, how sometimes you receive the pages in very different order. I don't know if you're able to do that. What does that look like for you?
That Damien page was a splash page. It was page 20 of 20. And luckily I got that pretty early. And I had kind of a gap between my next batch. So I got to put a little extra time into it because it was a really cool splash page. And, his whole monster. I don't know the name of that character, that his beast life. Yeah, I didn't know he was red. I hadn't seen him before that issue. So I had to go back and change that. But I get to spend a little, it's a splash page. So it's usually those, it's kind of self-explanatory. Splash pages have a big splash. So
no pun intended.
Yeah. So I went back, I got to spend a little extra time in that. And I'm actually really happy that that's definitely on my to-go portfolio. Like when I go to shows, that's definitely on there.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture. And those are those moments at the end that you really kind of you leave the fans with an impression. And the reason why I referenced both of those issues on that, you ended off both of those issues, and I was left with wow moments. And I think those pages are pretty critical to in this medium where you're going from week to week or month to month. Those last pages are the ones that leave you anticipating the next issue, wanting to come back for more. They're like cliffhangers on a TV show or in a movie series where there's, multiple films in a trilogy or some such. Those ending sequences are the ones that hold you and tide you over until your next fix.
Totally.
And I thought that those just really both paid off well.
Cool.
And that the ones that I particularly wanted to reference just because I really enjoyed how those issues ended and what they left me with emotionally.
Cool. I mean, it's from the script. An artist draws from the script, and then I get to color whatever the artist draws. So I wish I could take more credit for it. I mean, I did my best to try to make it have as much punch or express the story as possible. But it's pretty awesome that these writers can. This is a 27-part series, or is it 26-part series? And then every 20 pages, there's got to be some sort of cliffhanger or some sort of what's next? That's. I wish I could write like that. I've dabbled in it, but I just don't have that ability. So I'm always impressed. And so when I get that stuff, when I get those scripts, I try to do my best to try to emphasize what they're doing. So that's
awesome. Yeah. I know you're on a time crunch, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us today. Is there anything you wanted to touch on? I know that
probably Battle Pug. I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but it's our last year. It's actually all available online for free, all 5 years. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. Mm-hmm. But we are on the last couple weeks before this story is done. So it went from his village being killed by a baby harp seal to him riding the giant pug. It's been a long 5 years. There's been some cameos. There's a Robert Kirkman cameo. There's a John Layman cameo. And there's a
that was ILL, right? ILL came from that. I Love Layman. Wasn't that?
Oh yeah. But there's actually a character called Layman in it right now. And then Eric. What's Eric's last name? The publisher at Image Comics. So we're having fun with it. We're playing with it. It's just a good time. So and it's kind of one of those things where so I do these comics, and every once in a while, when I just want to torture myself, I'll type in my name and review at the end on Google, right? Mm-hmm. Just to see what people say. On Battle Pug, people can comment after every episode goes out. So they usually complain about Mike Norton's calves, but it's really interesting, to get that feedback and to hear what people are thinking. So it's just a really fun process.
One thing I want to encourage people to do too, I'm a big fan of webcomics and the experimental nature of that delivery. If you like a book, that is a webcomic. You mentioned earlier that there's a hardcover version of it, and I mentioned the digital version from Dark Horse. I encourage you to support those projects by buying the collected product afterwards. It's kind of a way to let people know that you really appreciate the product, but also share those links, because the great part is the jump-on point costs nothing. You just you send out the link, you share it, give people an opportunity to really read and get caught up and see if it's for them. I think it's just a great way. We talk about how do you bring new people into comics. That's a great way to do it. Hey, dude, if you aren't reading this, you should be reading it right now. Check it out. It's a great way to blast those things out. We'll have links to Battle Pug in the show notes. And also your website, which is angryf.com. So,
most of my stuff's over at angryf.deviantart.com now. And you can always follow me on pretty much just type in angryf, whether it's Instagram or Twitter. And I'm always posting, like I just posted a bunch of, I was watching Flashpoint on Netflix last night, so I put up a bunch of Hal Jordan Flashpoint images of King Shark attacking Hal Jordan's F-22. So, I put up a bunch of imagery up there, and you might dig it. I also say some stupid things, and I don't know. Check it out. Follow me. It'd be cool if I had some more followers.
The social part, actually, of the comics community now, I think, is really just a huge factor in the interactivity, I think, between creators and fans, and just kind of sharing a love for the medium and the characters that are associated with it. So it's really great. And I really appreciate you. You've always been so good about posting stuff and sharing with the community that it's actually how we met. I
love what I do, and I love working in comics. So I'm proud of this. Hey, if I get to color Batman, I'm stoked. Still, I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm going to put stuff up, and I want people to see it. And then, I'm going to promote my other friends or other people that are doing stuff, because it's just a cool job. It's a cool industry. So
I want to personally thank you, because in the 10 years that we've done this podcast, you were actually the first creator that reached out to us. You're the first creator that we had the opportunity to have on our show. And it was at a time where I wasn't sure if we should have creators on, because I didn't want people to think we were disingenuous as far as our love. We wanted this podcast to be about our love for comics. So we always pick books to talk about that we enjoy and we love, and we didn't want people to take that the wrong way. So I wasn't sure if it would be mistaken when we had creators on. You opened that up, and it really led to some rich discussions like we had today, where we got to talk about really the behind the scenes and the sensibilities of what you do, and became an education. And I found that for me as a fan over the last decade, if there's one thing that I really value about doing this podcast, it's conversations that I've had with creators such as yourself that have taken the time to be on this podcast, because it's a daunting task to be on this, because we tend to talk a lot. But I really feel like I enjoy a medium that I've enjoyed for over 40 years, even more now, because I have a better understanding of what goes in to making this happen. It's 20 pages each month or each week, and there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make it play out. And I really love knowing that process, and I really appreciate you taking the time to give us the opportunity to learn more about that. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It was great talking to you guys. I love what I do. And unfortunately, I spent a lot of time in my house by myself watching Netflix. So this is the most, interaction I've had with other humans in a couple days. So great talking to you guys.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you again, and we really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you very much.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
Just to kind of wrap up this episode, let's do just a quick chat about some of the recent issues that came out. Today, Batman 50 came out. And honestly, I have the paper copy coming of this. I pre-ordered it on Comixology, so I would get it it sends you a nice little email that says your book is ready in the morning. So I read this first thing this morning, and the word I used when I was talking to you was satisfying, and that isn't really a strong enough word for what it was, but I think it does kind of encompass my overall feeling in the whole thing. It's something interesting when you have a big story arc like this that involves so many key players, and it all paying off in a way where you feel like every character's arc was satisfying. Like, this really just wrapped everybody up in a way where I was like, wow, I just really enjoyed this story. I loved how everything played out. I loved what it did with Bruce, and we got a great character arc with him. Jim Gordon played out right. Julie did, like everybody, Penny 2, Penny 1, Penny 50, it all like played out really, really well, including Rookie. Everything went the way that I would want it to. And in some ways it was a nice conclusion to not just this book, but what was going on in Detective as well. Really have been enjoying this just overall ride with Gordon as Batman and how it all played out. That I could not wait to talk about this. I told you, I said, like, dude, we need to talk about this today. It just needs to happen. And I love that kind of feeling after you've read a comic where you're just like, I want to regurgitate, like, have diarrhea of the mouth and just have like words spit out about just how awesome this was. This clearly is what this is. Like, my microphone, I'm going to have to probably spray it with something after this because of what's happening to me at the moment because of how great this was.
A regurgitation of greatness.
It's a regurgitation of greatness. Yes, I like that.
Yes, yeah, and I agree completely with you on this one because it was funny. We were talking, and I picked up I have the paper coming, but I picked up the digital because I logged on to the site and seeing, okay, what we got out there, what came out today, and just clicked on this one, clicked on Batman and Robin, Eternal. And I'm getting them tomorrow. So all these papers are coming, but I could not. This was one of the ones I couldn't wait for because I knew I was very excited, And then as we were talking, like, I haven't clicked on, I haven't just started reading. Okay, read it. I'm like, all right, and yeah, satisfying, great story. Just this was an absolute wonderful ending where it brought everything together. It got us back to that happy place, and I don't know about you, but I 100% do not feel like they rushed anything. I think this story played out perfectly because every single piece of it got to tell their full story. This wasn't just a Batman Bruce Wayne story. This was a Bruce Wayne, Jim Gordon, Duke, Alfred, Penny 1, Penny 2, as you said, and even just the city of Gotham itself. I loved, again, the fact that Gotham as an entity was a part of the story and was part of bringing the bad guy down. It wasn't just Batman doing it alone, and it's guys like Gordon who recognized that it wasn't just Batman, it wasn't just Gordon, it was the city itself. And those are always, when Gotham is a character in a Batman story, you got somebody who's doing it right. And this team absolutely did a wonderful job with that.
All right, it's time. It's been a good rest, but the city is calling you. They need their Batman back. You left them when they needed you, though. So, if you do this, if you come back, you better give it everything you've got. You better give them what they've been waiting for, and then some. Give them something they've never seen before. Give them the Batman they deserve. Yes, that's right, I'm talking to you. First of all, here's a bat sink. I want a bat sink. Second of all, the new costume kicks all kinds of butt. I really like the design. I loved the color scheme. I like the idea that he's got this closet full of, like, unique Batman costume opportunities, like Batman action wear. And they all look like, every one of them, I'm like, I would like every one of those. They look super cool. I really loved everything about this issue. Like, it was really, when you do a storyline like this, to your point, and you don't rush it, this is an opportunity, if you nail it, to give some real fan service here. Oh my gosh, you jump to Jim Gordon character arcs where Jim Gordon's like still, Jim Gordon's not a background player in any of this. Jim Gordon's every bit in the forefront. But here's what you get to see from this one. Jim Gordon's journey led to this. It wasn't Bruce Wayne under the Batman costume. It was Jim Gordon under the Batman costume. And when the two of them team up in this, it's really clear this is Batman and Commissioner Gordon, Jim Gordon, however you want to label him, teaming up again. These are two buddies who just get it. And when it's their city under fire, these are two guys that will not quit. They'll do it in their own unique way, but they will keep coming, no matter what the other one says. And I loved that part of it. Great relationship between the two of them, and I loved they took full advantage of it.
Yeah, punctured spleen, internal bleeding, and handcuffed to a helicopter. That doesn't slow down Jim Gordon. I absolutely love the fact that, one, great entrance. That was like really classic, just iconic Batman when he first makes his first appearance. I loved how they still, even though he's bathed in light, he still was draped in the shadow, and then he pops out and you see the new costume. Again, great, just booming entrance for Batman. But then again, one of the art sequences I loved in that moment when he comes in is you see, at the it's that very first panel when he lands on the bat symbol. The very last panel, you see Gordon pulling Penny pulling Julia away, and he's kind of like, chuckling, just like the rest of us were. I love just how they had that one little panel in there, because okay, it's time for some serious butt kicking to go on, and you got a guy right there, Gordon, right along with us. It was one of those really cool moments.
When he's standing on the bat signal in and of itself, no, I am. Hello, Jim. Who died and made you Batman? That whole sequence was just so phenomenal. What a great way to play this whole thing out, because this is the fight that I want to see right now. I want to see Batman versus Bloom, and I want it to feel like an epic battle. Dude was like pulling out all kinds of new moves. He picked up a pipe and he hit that bat signal at Bloom. That was great. I loved that Bloom because of the way that it spreads. It's like a pollen almost, and it's in the way that it breeds. The concept of Bloom breeds, that it isn't just one person. It is a whole wealth of people. And I just really loved how that played out. It was very cool.
Yeah, and I love the fact, again, now that we have a fully revived and healed, Batman, all the years of scarring gone. You're the fastest and strongest Batman since, ever. I love the fact that they're playing, this is going to be a whole nother story for Batman. We're going to get, again, that younger, that fit, vigor, and full, vim and vigor Batman but he still has that same experience. So it's not the young kid who's healthy. It's the wise old veteran who's healthy and strong. So the future stuff coming down from the Batman stories, again, another awesome, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be cool.
I love that this does wind up being a revival for him. We've got a young, pepped up Batman. I love that. I thought that was just really a great storytelling tool, because I guess it was a piece I wasn't really thinking about in all this, but Bruce was back, and we saw Bruce bearded and kind of doing his whole thing, helping out with charity and very content to live life. I wasn't thinking about the implications that this guy's fully healed now in a way that he probably hasn't been in a decade. I mean, from just training straight on through to present day. I really loved the way that became a part of the element in the story. The interactions between Batman and Jim Gordon every time they were on page together, the dialogue between them, the way they carried themselves, even when Batman didn't leave, you don't disappear? That whole thing, mainly because he knows he's been in that role before. I mean, how awesome is that?
And again, it was funny because they had little funny moments like that, especially like how you mentioned before, Jim, who died made you Batman, then you don't disappear. It never took away from anything on what was going on the page. And again, it's what you said, how two old friends getting together to save their city, and you have, in the middle of the firefight, you would have that kind of camaraderie. You would have that 100% trust. And I love how the fact's like, we're on it. When he's talking to Jerry, he's like, wait, we? Who is we? Again, Batman is back. Batman and Gordon are back together again. This, in a way, this is the dynamic duo. These two working together. Yes, the Batman Robin, symmetry is awesome, and I do love having having the fact that he's going to be getting a new Robin, which I'm kind of excited for. But there is something about the Gordon Batman relationship, and I'm so glad that right from jump, we're back into this. The band's back together again. Two people, two seasoned veterans who trust each other. They're at it, and they're working together. I was very excited.
The whole Duke and Daryl sequence I thought was absolutely phenomenal. And I loved where Duke's arc went. Because Bruce made him the new Robin, didn't he, or something, right?
Well, yeah, the ending with him showing up at Duke's house, I have an offer for you. I'm assuming that he's going to be the new Robin. That's how I read it, that, Duke's, that he's going to be our new Robin. And I'm very happy with that. As much as I love Damian, come on. I'm a Damian fan. The little monster's awesome. But the Duke as Robin has been really cool. And I think him and Bruce together will have a nice dynamic.
This suit I loved immediately. Like, it's funny, every panel that I see it on, I'm partial to the boots, when he's kicking them and all that. I love the way that whole sequence plays out. The costume looks fantastic.
Yeah. I like the chest. I like the chest plate. Because I've always been a fan of the gold shield with the black, bat symbol on it. So this is kind of a meshing of it, but also this symbol looks very similar to the under symbol that Gordon wore on his undersuit. Because the Gordon undersuit has just the solid, has the gold outline on the black field, and if you look at it, it's kind of like they switched it around, but it's
Batman never
the same
wore
style.
gold. Bruce never wore gold. Bruce wore yellow. It was the yellow and black.
Oh, okay.
The gold bit's new. I mean, actually, if you take a look at the beginning when they were showing the multiple suits, the yellow symbol's there. So this gold thing is a new twist. He hasn't done that before, and I actually like how the belt matches it. I'm agreeing with you in the sense that I like the color scheme the same way you're saying it. But if you look back at that opening page where you've got the suits, and you see them there on the right-hand side, that first suit is the yellow and black. The classic yellow and black is right there. And that's the shield that I grew up with as a kid. And that was always kind of the thing on there. And I loved it. I loved that it was there and that his presence was there. I like that this is it is a nice tweak on it while echoing what's been really good in the past. I actually like that it's gold because it's a little darker. And the one thing that as I got older, the yellow shield bothered me a little bit because Batman's supposed to be stealthy, So now you're putting a little too much color scheme on him when you got the yellow sitting right there. It's almost like painting a target on his chest. And they did play off that in comics a lot of times, that was done deliberately and that was reinforced and stuff. But in this case, I really like that this is more of a kind of an amalgamation on that while darkening that color scheme a little bit and doing something that they've never done this before. This is a new color scheme for Batman, and I really quite like it.
Yeah, we're both in agreement on that, and it's also like you said earlier. I like the fact that he has that closet of costumes, so he could periodically pull something else out, or if another art team were on this, they could do tweaks to it. They could pull an old costume out, and it's Batman's that character who can get away with doing these changes just because of the circumstances or because of I don't know, maybe it was laundry day and he didn't get the old suit clean, so he's got to go to one of his other ones. There's so many different variations you could do on Batman, and I'm glad that they, when he made his debut, it was something new. Again, it's that pop. It was that, that sudden just bam hits, and you need to have kind of the shock and awe type of moments. And, it's, again, same Batman, but it is a new Batman. It is a reinvigorated Batman, and this is, again, it has you excited for the future stories coming down, knowing this guy is going to be going forward.
I like that Batman has a Mechabot.
Yeah.
That he's duking it out with. Like, that's become a thing. I don't know. I like these armor suits. It just kind of makes sense to me that you would have that kind of thing in this modern day and age. And it all kind of works in the whole sequence. I love Jim Gordon carrying the door because he was chained to it. Because I'm not quitting. I don't care what anybody says. That part was really, really awesome. It does set up for later, too, with his injuries. It sets up a reason for time passage. And I liked how that played into the story.
Now, see, with the Batman Mechabot that we see, and I agree with you, I like he has it, but I took it that was that Joker bot, but just stripped down.
Go back to the Batcave, and there was a Mechabot sitting in the Batcave.
Oh, okay.
It was underneath that page. So I guess I was taking it was that. I don't know that you're wrong.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the Batcave sequence and you look at the suits, the next panel underneath has a Mechabot sitting right there. I don't know. I mean, maybe you're right, but I guess I took it was that. Although I don't know. So I don't know. Here's the thing. I would be. I'm not really that lockstep in that. I really liked that he took advantage. Whether it was that. Here's the thing. Whether you're right or I'm right's irrelevant to me. I really like the idea that with what was going on with Bloom, there would be a need to pick up some heavy artillery and really go toe-to-toe with something that's more than traditional, Batman's fighting skills. And I really like that Batman's always been great with the use of gadgets.
Yeah.
And I like the use of environment. So if you strip down the bot and use that, yay, I'm in. I think that's all. It's cool to me regardless of how it happened. I really loved that battle with Batman and Bloom.
Yeah, I agree. And we even know from the Batman and Beyond story that he's going to end up getting a Rookie as well, and I'm assuming he's going to get all the Bat bots that they as they decommission them. So he's going to have more of an arsenal. And again, it fits for Batman to have these things. He's the guy who prepares for everything, so he should have a giant Megabot. He should have a smaller a rookie size bot that just for depending on for the circumstances for that. He should have cold weather, hot weather, underwater, space. He should have all these different suits. Any possibility that he could run into, he should have something prepared for it. So I'm with you. I was happy, and I loved seeing the big fist and the big duking out, and especially I loved how with that sequence where the big Megabot's walking down and you see people like, wait, stop, look, is that no way? And it's the people are beginning to see Batman's back, and it was again they kept building to this point that Batman is back, and it's the hope that he inspires. It's just the fact that it's not just about Batman saving the day, it's about Batman's here, we all rise up, we can all do this.
I love when Batman saves Duke and you see the people looking up in the sky going, look up there, it's him. Yeah. Such a great fluid sequence there. You got to see Duke in that moment. But also people starting to rip off their seeds.
Yeah.
That are on them. The spore levels are going down. And again, the battle continues in that moment. I just really loved that sequence of events. And it led into, the final destruction of Bloom. I like that Jim Gordon was an integral figure of all that. Because that's really the guy that's been duking it out with Bloom. I like that this wasn't just Batman defeating Bloom. It was a team effort. It was all of our big players taking action, being in it together. We've been following Jim Gordon as Batman. Jim Gordon got to have a bbig moment here. Batman got to have a big moment here. Notice I'm calling him Batman. I guess there's only one.
There's only one, man.
and it really, this is very much Highlander because there can be only one, and it worked great. And I really, that was the part that was satisfying out of this because I felt there was great closure to Jim Gordon as Batman, where I'm not like, oh man, they didn't end that right, or there was no closure to it. They went back to the storyline that's been going on between him and Powers all along, and how Jim's kind of really gotten to the end of his tether here, and he's like, you know what? I didn't know what I was going to say to you in this moment. I love that he quits, and this leads to new positions being created. It opens up the opportunity for him to hopefully come back and be the commissioner. I guess that's how I was taking it at the end. I really liked the play out. I love seeing Harvey Bullock there because that was kind of to me, a great connection to the Detective Comics storyline. This just had every possible beat and every possible story converging into a really satisfying ending where it was like, wow, this really changed the status quo, put things back in play that should be, left things open to be kind of new, especially with, potentially Duke and Bruce teaming up. I just really left me looking forward to more Batman storytelling. And that's always the great sign to an end of a good arc, when you kind of go, what's now? What's next? What's the next issue going to be like? I'm still as excited for the next issue as I was for this one because of the pacing you mentioned earlier is spot on this.
Yeah, I was so worried about Gordon dying because they were setting up for the hero death. And I'm like, no. And especially just that last montage where he has about fighting the nightmares and just, and everything going through and just the run the blocker, rookie, Semper Fi. Like, oh no, because right there, that if I did ever heard a death, I'm about to die, last words for a hero right there, I was like, oh no, but thank God they kept him alive. And again, I'm so happy he's back in the commissioner's spot. I'm happy Bullock. This is a full on story, and they didn't, like put Maggie aside. Maggie's, back in major crimes where she wants to be. She's forming up a new task force. Gordon's going to be commissioner. Bullock's back on the job. It's, they're taking all the characters and they're giving them their ending. And for me, this was just an absolute perfect way to wrap this up. And we still got 2 more until we do the rebirth. So I don't know what the next 2 issues are going to be like, but I'm like, come on, let's keep this going.
Such a great ending to this. I loved like when he swung off in the end and like it looked like he was just so confident to be Batman again, There was like a bright uplifting part to Batman. I mean, I just thought that really was great. And his dialogue with Jim Gordon, I think, leading up to that, where it was 2 friends chatting, and there was that tete-a-tete of advice, both patting each other on the back. I love that Batman acknowledged that Bloom was his monster, and that he took him down, him in the city. There was something about that where the symbol of Batman was such a big part.
Yeah, you do feel bad for Bruce, though, the man, because of, the love that's gone and all that, and just everything that he's now passing up. And I love the fact that Gordon apologized to him for that you were at peace. I could feel you were at peace. Now you're back to this. I love the fact that, again, these are 2 friends who wouldn't want his buddy to go. He didn't know exactly where Bruce was. He didn't know what was going on, but he could tell that he was at peace. It's that same stuff, that the powerful moments where we had with Alfred, when Alfred didn't want Bruce to go down to the cave.
We're totally ignoring what Jim Gordon said here, though, because that part is really critical, this whole thing, because you're right in everything you're saying, but this. It could be that way. It's our job, not yours. You could have been that person. He knows. Dude knows. He knows. Because he wasn't going to say that Batman.
You know what? I never caught that. You could have been that Bruce Wayne.
Right.
He knows. Holy crud, right there.
I mean, that was really, really great. I loved how that all played out. That bittersweet moment at the end, I agree with you, with her looking at the brick. That stuff just really, it was bittersweet. But I like that. I really feel like he's swinging off and he knows who he is and where he's going to go from here. This has got me excited for what is this Batman going to be like. It's obviously he's going to be everything we know and love about Batman, but there's a great opportunity to see this Batman kind of take things to the next level, and every time you've got an arc where you're changing up the status quo and really reinvigorating a story, this is a way to revamp a guy without disrupting continuity,
Yeah.
He feels fresh, he feels new, he feels exciting, yet familiar, and everything that we know and love. You're right about that. It's bittersweet, but the sweet part is a bigger part of that bittersweet than sometimes is when you have those moments. And that I really enjoyed as being an ending of this story. It's not a dark ending, it's an uplifting ending.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Really, really good stuff. Do you want to talk really quick about Batman and Robin, seeing as we were just talking about it with Alan? The most recent issue, number 25, came out. Let's talk a little bit about that and the happenings in this particular book. Because, man, there's a lot to discuss here. What a great title. Like, as a weekly goes, this is the penultimate issue, because next issue is the final issue of this one. It does leave me, this current story ending leaves me with some serious questions about the fate of some of these characters. Like, what does the future hold for Bluebird, for Cassandra, in the wake of this particular event? What does it lead to for Damian? Because Damian's Robin. We know that in the upcoming rebirth, Teen Titans are going to be reborn with Damian on the team. So is he not going to be Robin anymore, and Duke is? And is Damian going to, still be called Robin, or will he be called something else? I don't know. And is Duke going to be, here's the thing, is Duke going to be called Robin or something else? There's a lot of questions coming out of this that I'm really, really enjoying. All of these characters matter to me. We got 2 stories right now that created great villains and great supporting characters to the Batman mythos that I'm really interested in. And Azrael.
Oh, God, yeah. And this has been, it's funny because as you talk about that, I was at first, because I'm saying that Duke's going to be the new Robin, but I don't think Duke's going to have the title of Robin. I think he's going to go with something else. Now, he's got the whole thing, We Are Robin and everything, and he's earned the name and just everything that, they've gone through in that title. But I think when it comes down to it, and I'm not sure what name Duke's going to go with, but I think he's going to go with something other than Robin, and Damien's going to keep the moniker of Robin. Now, again, they could change that very easily, and Damien could come up with a new name, and and Duke would have the Robin, would take on the Robin title. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where if I get column A, cool. If I get column B, cool. There's absolutely it's the anti Kobayashi Maru. This is a no lose situation, where we get, as long as we're getting both characters, which we're still getting both characters, as long as we're getting some good usage of them, I'm happy. Whether you call them Robin or I don't know. I can't think of another name for either one, to be honest with you, because I'm not that creative. But I'm assuming that they'll sort this out.
I loved the fight between Azrael and Dick Grayson. You see the two of them really duking it out. The sword breaks, and then we get to see right from the gauntlets, the old flaming swords that come out of the gauntlets from the old Azrael. This is one thing that Batman and Robin Eternal has done. People have been screaming, and I agree with them. I love these characters too. For the return of characters like Spoiler and Azrael and Cassandra Cain, and obviously then that comes along with things like David Cain. How do you put these back into the Batman mythos and get it right? This title has nailed that. There's not a single character that's been reintroduced that, they're telling, maybe a shortened version of their story or something like that, or a modernized version of their story, but they got the right drum beats here. And using Mother as kind of this connecting thread for all of these characters, I thought was a really clever way to do it, because, man, I love Bloom. And Bloom, I think, has probably been one of the creepier villains created. Mother, in and of herself, is very much what I loved about characters like Ra's al Ghul. She just seems like she's a strategist with all these just great plans set in motion. Both Bloom and Mother, if they aren't used in the future, very similar to the Court of Owls, it'd be a waste of a great character development. No, don't overuse them, but, man, you got to use these characters again because they are really, really strong.
Yeah. Mother's the strategery of Mother is absolutely wonderful. She's got Ra's al Ghul, she's got Court of Owls, all of that. She's one of those type of villains. And it's funny because whenever I read a villain like that, the only thing that pops in my head is there's no way you could leave her alive. She knows too much. She is that good with that level of planning, that level of contingency plans. Yeah, I know. There she is coming after me.
Mother's got somebody at the door. They want to talk to you, Jim, about your use of the word strategery. But don't worry, though. It's just a little kid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. I was expecting. I'm like, okay.
You kind of asked for it.
Always. But hey, I got to use the word at least once in every podcast.
No, you don't have to. You choose to. There's a difference between that.
It's like Mother said, I have to.
She's, if she's responsible for this, it explains a lot.
It shows just the level of her evil, of the evilosity of Mother.
No, she's like literally right now going, this is one of my failed experiments.
Me and Orphan.
Yeah, it's like, I thought I got it wrong with Orphan, but this guy, he uses words that are strange and he sings. It's like, what's going on? And whatnot. But go ahead.
I was one of the things though that with you're talking about Azrael, I loved how the fight sequence as they're going through, Dick Grayson is being Dick Grayson, and it's not just about beating some guy up. It is about letting him know. And I love how he turned. It's about Mother's philosophy. If you kill her, she still wins. You don't live under, her way. Choose your own path. And I love just the fact that, he's laying out there, because in my head, I'm thinking, when he first showed up, I'm like, Dick, let him do it. Let him kill her, and if he doesn't get, give him the first shot. If he doesn't get the kill, then take it your way. But it's kind of neat hearing him lay it out and explain why they go through such a huge, levels to not kill. It's not just about the Batman no kill code. There is reasoning behind it. There is an actual truth behind what he's saying, that this is why we can't kill him. And I love the fact that Harper had that same mindset and had that same philosophy, that same stuff she's talking about when Mother offered to, told her to kill, Cassandra. I was like, it was a great, and the fact that these two people who weren't trained by the same guy have the same mindset.
Yes, absolutely. I loved the whole Mother trying to sell Harper on this.
Yeah.
And, sitting there, she's a broken instrument. Her guilt was so powerful, it broke her beyond repair. Imagine that. A girl made only for killing, without the stomach for even one knife and one throat. Useless to me, I ordered her execution. So she ran. One of my children taught to stand strong. She ran. She ran to Batman. Do you see she's beyond repair? The only answer for you and for her is to close the circle. Give her the death even she knows she deserves. I really love how that whole sequence played out. And, she cuts her down, right? I mean, it's got to happen here because we're getting ready for the next issue where it's going to be good guys kicking butt. And I can't wait to see how that plays out.
Well, let's hold on. We can't skip over something, though. I love the fact that when it came finally time where they took the doors and they threw all the new orphans or whatever they're calling them all into one place and they go all up against Midnighter, and that's the way he wanted it. I love just how this ended up. We have all these different orphans or whatever they're calling themselves dealing with each of the points, and then one by one, door, door. I'm sitting there going, where are they dropping these people off? Because they're not,
What a great use of that character, man. I love Midnighter. Man. He's a character I keep wishing, because I've really loved reading him solo at DC. I'd love to see them find a way to make, like, he was great in Grayson. I hope with the rebirth that he's going to show up somewhere and we're going to get to see him regularly. I really loved his use, though, and he needs to be a part of the universe, even if he doesn't have his own title, because, man, was that a satisfying use of this character.
Oh, big time, big time. And again, and even like Cullen, Harper's brother. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that he isn't just the weak link in that family anymore. He stepped up throughout this, and we're seeing that he's got some, usage, and he's got a future in this. I thought that was kind of a cool thing, just how the fact that he was able to step up, because when they first brought him in, he was very shy and timid, but by the end there, he's running ops, while Midnighter's off doing his thing. He was actually calling the shots, pulling up doors for people. That was a really cool, again, a cool growth of a character within this series.
Be interesting if he did that on Birds of Prey.
I was thinking the same thing, that he could be at the Oracle, but I'm assuming Birds of Prey is going to have, they're going to have their own Oracle already. Not Oracle, but her friend called herself.
Wait, why couldn't it be Cullen with Batgirl on the team, Black Canary, Spoiler, Bluebird? Could we be? Are these characters Cassandra? Are these characters together accidentally?
Well, I'm hoping that Birds of Prey are Bluebird, Black Canary, Cassandra Cain, and Spoiler and Batgirl. I'm hoping that is the Birds of Prey team.
Yeah.
But it's Barbara's got her own, tech friend. I can't think of what her name is off the top of my head right now. I'm assuming she's going to come over. I'm assuming that.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Because I think they're doing a shift with her. I think that's from everything that I've understood, they're kind of reworking Batgirl as a part of this.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Here's the thing. I love her tech friend. So if they do that way, that'd be great. If this is a lead-in to potentially leading into that, it would be a shame not to use Cullen.
Yeah.
Because he's got the skills, and he's a character I don't want to see. Here's the thing. Neither character I want to see go. So if you're right on your assumption, I'm cool with that. I'm honestly really open to where that goes. I'm excited just to think through potential characters. When I saw a whole cast of female characters here, that I'm like, man, I want to see them in something. That sure makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, this was my assumption for Birds of Prey. Was some of the characters we're seeing here. I don't know if they're going to bring in Batwoman into Birds of Prey, even though I'd like to, because I think she's another great character. But I think we're going to get, the young female superheroes in on the team with Black Canary, and I think that's how the birds are going to be.
I'm interested to see if any of these wind up on Teen Titans too. I don't know. See what that team winds up looking like. I don't know. There's a lot of usage for these characters, and it'd be great to see them wind up somewhere. I know, I'm very open-minded to that. There's a lot of potential from this. Spinning out of this series is funny when you're with these characters every week and you start to get really fond of them. I want to know where they're going to land afterwards. I hope we get to see something from these characters, each one of them. Honestly, really great character development of all this. I can't wait. I'm going to be on vacation next week, and literally I'm flying back the day that issue 26 of this comes out. I will be reading this on the plane home. I can't wait to read the ending chapter of this one. I love this weekly delivery. I hope we get another one of these. Honestly, the first one was phenomenal. The second one's phenomenal. I love this.
I'm assuming we're going to keep getting more weekly series because they're hitting them out. They're hitting home runs with all of them. This is, I don't think I've really had we've had a flop. I think all of them have been really good, solid stories, and I think they've all been successful, especially this one. The first Batman, the Batman Eternal was amazing. Batman and Robin Eternal is absolutely amazing. They could keep running in the Bat Universe, the weeklies. They could pull another outside of the Bat Universe, a different title. I like this format. I'm happy. Well, they're doing bi-monthly titles, issues on, some of the titles. So maybe instead of going the weekly route, they're pulling that way. I don't know.
Can we jump to Superman real quick?
Yeah, I always want to talk Superman.
I'm actually going to start by talking a little bit about Action Comics number 50, and we can jump to Superman number 50, kind of organically. Just casually kind of talk about this whole event. I talk about another great... You were talking about the satisfying Batman story. I really enjoyed this Superman ride. I loved how it trickled into all of the Superman-related titles, very similar to how the Batman storyline was doing that they really embraced him teaming up with other characters and what that looked like. Man, at the end, not just a bullet, an explosion of toxins burrowing into my cells, finishing off everything the kryptonite didn't already kill. The voices in the intercom fading away, my eyes start to cloud, all my power's gone. And the fortress gleams below me. I'm gonna die on those spikes. Finally, I'm coming home. Searing pain, everything sliced away. Bioscan, but I'm not on the fortress, I'm in the fortress. Bioscan, and then... Bioscan positive. Man, the look on his face, the smile, you're dun dun dun. I loved T-shirt wearing Clark and all that stuff. I thought that was all great. There's something so classy when dude's flying out of the fortress and ready to go. You talked about a build with the Batman titles. This had the same thing. This was a nice, well-produced, extensive story that really embraced what was going on with Superman to the point when we finally, I so was ready to see him back flying out with his powers and doing this whole bit. Really, really great. I love that this spun out of a power set that was in the Jeff Johns book and how his powers were taken away and Vandal Savage took full advantage of that. It led to this whole thing. Major geek out for me when he flew out of the fortress.
Oh, big time. Big time. And again, everything you're saying, I was sitting there just sitting back laughing, going, yes. And as I was reading, I remember as I'm reading, I'm flipping pages, yes. I'm there, throwing my hands in the air. It was just that excitement of Superman being back. And it was one of those things where we kept saying, how are they going to do it? And then when they first started introducing, you're like, okay. And it was that building again. They went through multiple titles, multiple issues, let the build up. They made sure we never lost Superman. Clark Kent is Superman. Superman is Clark Kent. Those wonderful qualities that make Superman are also Clark Kent. And I love the fact that that's something we really explored in this when he didn't have his powers. Even when he didn't have the powers, even when he was weaker, he was still being Superman. He was still trying to make a difference. Even when everybody hated him and they basically burned down his house, destroyed the pictures he has of him and his family. Even when they tried to completely break him, he was still Superman. And, and just that moment of that relief, when he comes out and he's actually back, he's got the powers, he's, in the really cool, I love the Kryptonian armor, suit, just because, as I said, it looks like something Superman would be wearing. It does look like something that an alien tech developed, and I love just those moments of him coming out and then going right from there with all the action and fight sequence going on in action, the stuff going on in the actual Superman title. Both of these had some really great dun-dun-dun Superman moments. I was very excited, but also I love the supporting cast throughout all of this, where it's not just about Superman. It's not just about Clark. They did a great job with everybody else.
Mr. Reluctant Leader. Vandal's chosen. Blazing with energy from the comet. They're out of control. Boiling over. Capable of everything. But so are we. He's not standing behind anybody. They're standing behind him as he's standing tall there. Because he's leading the charge. Because that's what a leader does. So in your face. There's nothing reluctant about that.
Exactly. Right here, he's not being a reluctant leader.
Because he's not one. He's so
this
not
is the
one.
Superman he should have been, 52 issues ago.
This shows your lack of understanding of the character you claim to believe in.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I really loved that issue and how it played out. If there's one small criticism I have of this story, and it's very, very minor, I really enjoyed the whole battle with him and Vandal. It felt like the pacing of Superman 50 was just a little odd. And I really enjoyed the story, so don't get me wrong there. It was more, we had that great Action Comics issue with like this whole payoff and him ready to go into battle. Then you went into this kind of thing where Superman's seeing Krypton and then like these illusions.
Yeah.
Before he fights Vandal. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't like the issue. I enjoyed it, but it felt more like an epilogue issue instead of the big bang. And I don't know if you had the same experience that I did. I liked the issue a lot. Don't get me wrong. I've loved this storyline. I'm still on board with it. It's just that this issue in particular, I enjoyed it. I like what they were trying to do, but it didn't give me the sense of... I think what happened was after seeing him come flying out of the fortress, it was hard to follow that baby up.
Yeah. That was a tough thing. They could have very easily gotten away with this, putting these type of sequences, before Clark got his powers back.
Yes. Yeah,
as
that's
being
what
one
I'm
of those
saying.
things where this is kind of like the last temptation of Superman, trying to get him to not continue with the path he's going down. Have Vandal show him, hey, I could do all this stuff with all this power. You don't want to stop me, kind of thing. They could have very easily put that there, but to be honest, I enjoyed the story being told. When I'm reading this, I never hiccuped on it.
No, I want to say I hiccuped on it. Just you said it best. Like you could have moved some of this before that piece, and I think I would have liked it better. I love the story, so don't get me wrong on that one. It's just the pacing felt a little off, and that's all I'll say on that one, because I enjoyed the story. It didn't take anything away from the story for me, but if I'm sharing my real experience with it, that was the only criticism I'd have, but yet it had some really strong beats in it. I love the stuff with him as a kid with Dad, because we haven't seen that much in the New 52. What went on with him and Lois and how they finally kind of came together after all this was really, really cool with Jimmy. I don't know where that relationship's going to go. I love the closing at the end where he was flying off. Those moments are always a total geek out. Even what they ended up doing at the end with the conclusion of that, I'm like, okay, cool. That was neat what they did at that point. I just think, I personally think what the issue was, and it's not that there's anything wrong with how this issue is crafted. I think once Superman came flying out of there, I think that was the moment that you needed to wrap this up. Have the big battle, wrap it up, do the epilogue. I would have moved some of this stuff, like you're saying, before that moment. And I don't know that you could. I don't know that you could when you're getting into the head there. Actually, you probably could have, because it didn't matter whether he had kryptonite or not. It was more of an issue of Vandal kind of pontificating. And I actually liked the dialogue between the two of them and all that. So I didn't really have an issue with what they did. I just felt like some things were out of a sequence that I would have preferred them in for the kind of bang I was looking for. Great story, though, and this is going to be one of those that I will want collected. So I don't mean it in an overall negative way, just the pacing of this issue I think was thrown off a little bit for me, and I can't put my finger on it, other than the fact that I was nodding with everything you were saying about maybe putting some of this before that moment would have been better, and I think that would have worked for me.
Yeah, no, I get you, and and it was funny because when I'm first read through, I was just going through it, and it probably if they had gone from boom, 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 and just kept big bang after big bang after big bang, it would have read cool. It read cool as it was. It would have read cool. Cooler or more cool or however. So yeah, it's one of those things where this again is I'll say it again, the anti-Kobayashi Maru. This is a no-lose situation.
Yeah.
We got a great story as is. And had they done it their way, we would have gotten a great story. So this is something where they're firing the story they were telling me, whether they did it the one way or the other way, it still was awesome both ways. So it's a plus, plus, plus. So I'm like, cool. So I get what you're saying. And again, one of the things that I really absolutely loved on this was the fact that in the end, Puzzler, actually kind of joins the team, and it was a neat moment, that realization where he's going to Superman, hey, why didn't you kill Hoarder? He's just dead. He wasn't even human. He's like, no, he was human. He may not have had a human form anymore, but he still was a human. I fought robots. He wasn't a robot. He had his own choices to make, just as you have your own choice to make. So those are some cool moments where, once again, the big man, it's not just about a physical beatdown. Same thing happened with the Batman story. It wasn't just about a physical beatdown. There was something more to this character, and again, more to the ending than it had a great sequence. I love this the 2-page spread when they're pushing the asteroid and it breaks up, and just the end of Vandal's unlimited power. Was just absolutely wonderful. The non-traditional panels, 2-page spread. You really just see this really cool visual stuff, but on top of this cool visual stuff, you got this great story of what it takes to be a hero, what it takes to be one of the good guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what a great storyline. Honestly, it was a great month. And when I said those were criticisms, they were really very minor. I'm really excited with some of the and I really wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk about these books in particular, because we've got some big episodes coming up. We're going to do our next episode. Looks like it's going to be Batman v Superman. It's going to be released in probably about 10 days or so, because I'm going on vacation. When I come back, we're going to meet with Art Lion, and we're going to do that episode. Then we're going to switch our order just a little bit. We're going to do our Wonder Woman special, where we talk about the contest and that whole arc that was related to that as our special anniversary show. So that's a piece I want to talk about. I do want to shout out one book, Jim. Are you reading Leaving Megalopolis, Surviving Megalopolis?
Yeah. Through
Dark Horse?
Yeah.
It's 3 issues in, and I just wanted to shout that one up because I'm a huge Gail Simone fan and Jim Calafiore. That the original one was a Kickstarter. Now, Dark Horse reprinted it in their line and did the digital version of it and released it in paper as well. So now the new series is out. I'm just excited and thrilled to be reading and enjoying that. And I just wanted to shout it out because we never really mentioned it on the show, and it's just a piece that I want to make sure to shout out on the podcast. Jim, let's do some voicemails and then wrap up the episode.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Donnie Salvo here, and I just want to say congratulations on 10 years of podcasting. That's crazy. Unbelievable. I mean, I've probably been listening to you guys 8 out of those 10 years, I'd say. And, I love the show. I love that now I have a little one and I can listen to you guys talk about comics and with him in the room, I don't have to worry about, it's very family friendly, unlike my own show. And, and your guys' positivity is amazing. There's sometimes I read a book and I'm like, man, it wasn't that great. And then I hear you guys talk about it. I'm like, yeah, I missed that point. Maybe you're right. And I give it another shot, and 9 out of 10 times I turn out liking it. But also, when I first started podcasting, my first show, Reality Wasted, and Sean reached out to me and he promoted us on your show. And then when I saw you guys at one of the Comic Geek Speak Super shows, you just came over, talked, and hung out, and when I've seen you at cons, here and there over the years, it's just been a pleasure to hang out with you and talk to you guys, even if it is for, half hour, an hour, whatever, here and there. I know I've been going on for a while, but congratulations and thank you. Thank you for all the years of entertainment and, do another 10 years. Why not? I'll be here. Take it easy. Bye.
Honestly, I had like a brief spell where just because of work, I mean, obviously for long-time listeners, we've strived over the years to try to be as weekly as possible. We tend to do shows that are 2.5 and 3 hours long because it just feels natural for how we deliver our conversation. It just works for us. And there's a comfort in that. It's very conversational, and we don't feel like we're putting a cap, and rushing through conversation on the podcast. So I like that. And you and I are both big talk radio fans, so, I mean, that kind of works. But there were honestly some stretches, especially in the last couple of years, where because of new work duties, now I'm taking 2 classes at a time, in the evenings to try and, I'm getting my principal licensure and stuff like that, that literally I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I was very sad about it because I'm like, wow, maybe, year 10 is the year where I wrap it up. Honestly, I couldn't see myself stopping this. Honestly, it's every time we sit down and record, I'm like, what am I thinking? There's no way I could do that. And part of this is, first of all, being able to hang with one of my closest friends and chat and just have a really good time. Because, I mean, you and I have always been really good friends. And, we were friends hanging out, going over, and watching wrestling and independent wrestling and stuff like that before we did this podcasting gig together. And honestly, I think this has only brought us closer, being able to kind of work on a project like this together for so long. Kind of develop an understanding of not only similar thought processes that we have, but really learning how to talk through and appreciate the differences and really enjoy that part of our conversation. Because he mentioned bits where, like, there was a book that he was unsure about, and then he heard us talking about it, and it kind of changed some of his thinking. There's been times where we've both walked into the show and we've been, on one side of the fence or the other about some topic in a book. Maybe not even the whole book, just a topic in the book. And through our conversation, we've kind of thought differently. Sometimes it's I've thought your way, or you've thought my way. And other times it was like we came to some hybrid conclusion at the end that we were both satisfied with. And that type of stuff, I think, has been, for me, one of the most rewarding experiences of podcasting has been just being able to talk this stuff out and really have deep, interesting conversations about stuff that I'm already enjoying in multiple read-throughs. It just takes it to a whole other level being able to do this. And I really value and appreciate how lucky I am to have this opportunity with you, and that we have an audience that, whether they listen to us every episode or just certain segments, or, catching once or twice a couple of years during the year, whatever, that people find some value in what we do. Meeting people like Donnie Salvo, so many podcasters. If I started listing all of them, I would do everyone a disservice. But listeners who've listened to the show, whether we talk online, meet in person, on Facebook, whatever, this is a community. And there's that whole silent crowd, too, that just really listens to the podcast and enjoys it. And we don't really have any interaction, but the interaction is that I see that, wow, look at the listening numbers. People are enjoying this. It means a lot that people give up some portion of their time to listen to this. Donnie mentioned shouting out Reality Wasted. One of the things I've truly loved about podcasting is when we were getting our start, so many people looked out for us. It's so nice to have been able to pay that forward and do that for people. I think now we still do that with, like, the Facebook group when people call in. I really always want people to feel comfortable shouting out things that they're doing, because I'm a big believer in that. This is a community, and I'm proud to be a part of the community. And, over the years, we've met so many great people, Donnie being one of them, that, he mentioned that we only get to hang out for like an hour or a half hour. That's probably one of my biggest regrets about that is you start having great conversations with really cool people who genuinely are your friends, and you don't get to see each other as much as you'd like. And that's been something, the expansion of what I consider a friendship group through this medium, and being able to reach out to them, being able to share that with a friend like you, has just been, for me, a very rewarding part of this first 10 years of the podcast. Okay. And I'm very pointed in saying that, because I don't see it stopping us anytime soon. I really appreciate the patience of listeners over the years. Our release dates have changed from weekly to every 10 days or so, and people have been very supportive about just sticking with us, understanding that life kind of gets in the way, but we're releasing regularly, and we're committed to continue releasing a regular podcast to you. Maybe a few days extra between episodes than you're normally used to, but that will we'll shrink that back down again when the time is right. And I'm really glad to keep doing this. I'm glad to celebrate 10 years and be releasing an episode. And honestly, Jim, I would be remiss if I didn't thank, first of all, my wife for all her patience in doing this, because, we used to do the whole St. Mariah thing, but she's been incredibly patient over the years and supportive of this. My family's been very supportive of this, but I could not have done this without you. I've mentioned this on the show many times. I bust your balls and all that kind of stuff on the podcast and all that. But in all honesty, with all due respect to you and the quality of person that you are, you were the first person I asked to do this for a reason. And it had nothing to do with your employment status at the time or anything like that. You are easily one of the most reliable and genuinely kind people that I know. Interesting. I really enjoy talking to you. You have a unique perspective that's yours. You're not afraid to be you. And I really enjoy that about this, because I'm intrigued when we start recording, not to just share my opinion, more importantly, to hear your reactions to my opinion and to hear what you came up with. Like, well, how did you see these things? Because you do see things differently than I do. And I feel like I'm reading a book all over again from a different perspective when I get to chat with you. I knew I could count on you. And I thought this was going to be a rotating cast when I originally did this. The first time I recorded with you, I'm like, I don't really want to record with anybody else. I really enjoyed the experience that much. It just fit. And I can't thank you enough for the amount of hours you've put in, the dedication you put in, because this isn't just about when we sit down and record. We read, reread, we do notes, we, do look up things to make sure that we're knowledgeable and we have something interesting to say when we record that we really believe in. And your honesty, your candor, your just overall friendship. I honestly could not have done this without you. And this show is only half of what it is without you. And I genuinely mean that. It really has been so much fun recording with you. And I'm so glad that we continue to do more together with this. And I can't thank you enough for supporting me in this and actually coming along on this crazy ride.
Oh, God, dude, man. Yeah, I have no idea. You have no idea how miserable my life would be if I didn't have this show. This has been 10 years. This has been the longest commitment I've ever made to anything. This podcast is the longest commitment, the longest relationship I've ever been in. And it's something that sometimes it's hard for me to fully express just how much I love doing this. That, I know because you've got crazy school stuff, I've got crazy work stuff going on, but even when we can't record, I'm still recording podcasts in my head. When I'm reading books, I'm sitting there planning how you and I are going to talk about this now. Like when we first started, I was doing all the notes and stuff like that. Now I'll still do some, outpoints, some bullet points, some outlines kind of stuff, but I'm actually having full-fledged episodes because I'm thinking I'm going to say this. Sean's probably going to come back with this or this or this. And there's a couple, where I've had a couple episodes in my head that, one, we haven't even been able to talk about the book. I'm like, dang it, I really want to talk about this because we're going to have a cool talk about it. Or sometimes where we've talked about a book, like a lot of our Secret Six stuff. Mm-hmm. I've always had an episode in my head, before we actually talk. And I will honestly say you still throw me for loops. You still completely throw a curveball that I never saw coming. I'm like, what the heck? Where'd that come from? Or you'll throw out a one-liner that I won't see coming. And there's a lot of this, where I got to be quick on my feet to keep up with you sometimes because you'll throw a little goofy stuff at me and I got to react to it. But, it's funny because when we actually do those episodes on those books that I've had a full-fledged episode run through my mind already, I got to say, the show is better when it's the two of us and not just the insanity that goes on inside my head. So that's something that I always enjoy, the fact that when we get together, you throw out those surprises. You do those little one-liners. You throw out that crazy comments or whatnot that is coming, out of just left field. And I got to react to it. I love that kind of stuff. So this has been an absolute just, complete treat for me. And I wish, like you, I wish we could do it more. Yes. I wish we could have more people and just hang out and just, talk and just do, time, life gets in the way sometimes of the stuff you really enjoy, but you got to make time for these moments. You got to make time for this podcast. And that's, so I got another 10 years in me easy.
Me too. It's honestly, it's funny. I told you about, there's been times where I've literally been like, oh geez, I can't always do it once a week. That part was really a struggle for me for a while when we went to the fact that lately we've been doing it 10 days. And really, honestly, for people who don't know behind the scenes where that's coming from, my job status has changed, but I'm also taking, I'm going for my principal licensure. I'm taking 2 classes at a time. So, I'm coming home later in the evenings now, and I'm finding on the weekends are really the time when I can start working on papers. And I've got papers I've got to do every week. And I'm not complaining about any of that. I'm loving that, but this podcast is an incredibly important part of my life as well. So the trick has been just being a little bit more judicious with my time and making sure to fit this in so we can keep doing it, making sure it's regular. And we've been doing that. We've been, as you've noticed, it's, we try to keep it within the 10-day range if we can possibly swing it. So that way you're getting at least 3 episodes a month from us. And we're really trying hard to stick to that piece of it. And with the fact that we're delivering like 2.5, 3-hour episodes, giving people a significant amount, you're really getting from us 9 hours of content a month, which is, pretty impressive considering. And I really am loving still doing that. Like you, I can't see myself stopping anytime soon. And I actually can't wait till my schedule eases up a little bit more so we can go back to doing it weekly again, because I genuinely miss that, mainly because of the fact that one of the problems we've always had on this podcast is getting to all the books we want to talk about. It's not been an issue of like trying to find great books. No, I read so many great books that it's real easy to say to myself, and I haven't talked about this book in a while. Man, I want to talk, like you, I want to talk to Jim about that. And that's a part of this whole piece of the puzzle. There's one other thing Donnie made me think of. Over the years, you and I have had the opportunity to guest on other podcasts because of doing this. And we'd be remiss if we didn't thank all those podcasts for that, for the support. Podcasts like Comic Geek Speak, I want to shout out at first, and Ian Levinstein over at Comic Timing, which was originally Geek Speak back then. If it wasn't for those 2 shows, this wouldn't be happening, because they were really the podcasts that got us started. Comic Geek Speak was the one that I started listening to, and very early on, and this was, within their first year, they started doing events. And when they did their first event, I was really just a big fan, and I went and I contributed a few things to their episodes. They did Stump the Rios and stuff like that, and so I sent something in. And when I say submissions, they were very simple call-in submissions, like people would do for this show. I really got a bug from that, and I'm so thrilled that led to me wanting to do this, but also that's opened the doorway for people to do it on our show, because we've had a lot of people who've called into our show that have said, hey, you know what, I just started having fun doing that, and I want to do my own podcast. And I love when people do things like that. And, we got a great Facebook group community now that's come out of this. Just watching people hang out where it's theirs. It's not ours, it's theirs. They took it over. It's, martial law, it's theirs. And I love that. I like that it went beyond us. I really think that's important, that they became their own community, and I'm glad to visit it. And that to me is, I'm probably more proud of that than anything else with that aspect of it. We've had a lot of wonderful guests on the show, from comic book creators to podcasters to listeners who've been very generous with their time. We've had people who shouted us out, tweeted us out, put us on the various podcast sites. I can't thank you enough for anything you've done to support, promote our podcast, call into the podcast, any way you've participated in some capacity, and whether it's just a silent listener who listens, all of you have done something for us in your various roles to this show that I can't tell you how much I appreciate. 10 years is a long time. We've had a lot of contact with a lot of really cool people, whether they were large contact or small contact. Really appreciate that opportunity, and it's just made me enjoy geeking out about this stuff so much more, and I really appreciate that extended friendship group. So if there's anybody I forgot to shout out in all of this, please don't consider yourself slighted in any way, shape, or form. It's more of I'm just genuinely appreciative of every piece of the puzzle that this has led to for me and for Jim in interacting with the community and opportunities that we've had, and the fact that we're lucky enough to have a great audience base. I want to shout out really quick DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. They have been with us for so long. They're planning a little contest that we're going to do some things with. We're going to be able to give away some items to you. We're going to be shouting out that some more in April. They're currently doing something with C2E2 when we were organizing all of this. So we're going to do a cool little contest thing coming up, and we want to do it with you. And it'll be in a celebration of the show as we start heading into year 11 of the podcast. So there is something coming. I didn't forget about that. But it's nice to have sponsors, because what honestly DCB Service and InStockTrades.com have done for our podcast is they help pay the bills. This is not a money-making operation. We don't make money off of this. What we get from our sponsor really covers the cost of web hosting, podcast hosting. We're a pretty hefty program. So keeping the podcast uploaded and storage and rolling it out to you cost us money, and that takes care of that in our website and in everything we do behind the scenes on it. So it's and equipment over the years. It's helped pay for that. So I really want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for supporting this show, because they really do sponsor the podcast. And I think it's important to, let people know that is a legit, genuine thing. They support quite a few podcasts. So if you're not an online shopper and never have checked them out before, give them a shot, just because they're really great people. Cameron and the whole crew over there are just genuinely nice. And if you see them at a convention, do go up and talk to them, because it'd be great, to see them, because they do go to the major cons, and it'd be great to walk up to their booth and just say hello and thank them for supporting podcasts, because I would still do it without the sponsorship. Don't get me wrong. I've got the bug. Yeah, I'll pay for it myself. It is really nice, though, to have them offsetting our overhead to doing this podcast. It gives us more money to be able to spend on comic books. Yeah. And to be honest, with the fact that I don't have to pay for the podcast hosting and everything. It also, though, pays for the retention of the podcast, because people often tell me how, I just started listening and I've been going back listening to older episodes of yours, and whether you listen to all of them, which some crazy people have done, and I God love you, because we've put out a lot of stuff, or you pick and choose ones that are up there. I'm thrilled when I see numbers go up for past episodes, because I'm like, oh man, it's so worth hosting those, because people are still finding value in some of that content in the past, and it means a lot. So I don't know, a lot of thank yous there, but they're really genuine and heartfelt. And thank you, Donnie, for giving us a platform to talk about all of this, because if it wasn't for you kind of open up that conversation and dialogue, we wouldn't have a chance to shout out all those things. So thank you for that.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Jack from Michigan calling. Let you guys know, so far the Batman, TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover, first 4 issues have been fantastic. If you guys haven't had a chance to read it, pick it up and read it. It really is one of the best crossovers I've read in the past years or so. And I'd also like to know what comic you guys are chasing. What's your holy grail comic for you guys to own and to have in your collection that's most important? Thanks very much, and have a great day.
First, I want to shout out to everybody. I totally agree with him on Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you didn't listen to our last episode, we had Freddie E. Williams II on talking about the first 4 issues of that book. Can't recommend it enough. It's crossovers done right. So definitely check that out. To his question, though, and I'm going to throw this one to you, Jim, first. Is there a holy grail comic or comics that you're looking for, ones that you're like, man, I would really like to add this to my collection? It's a missing piece or a series that I've wanted to explore. Is there something that, like, when you go to cons, you want to go bin diving for, or something you want to get digitally, which is a different platform now to be able to get that? Like, is there something on your radar that you want that's maybe a collectible that you're like, I would really love to have an original of this, or something like that, something that you're looking for? It's kind of a broad topic, but.
Well, for me, the holy grail is and always shall be Action Comics #1, not the original. I've read the story. I have it digitally, and I read the story, so I know what happens. But just to have that I think would be something kind of neat. It was funny because I want to say New York. Yeah, I think it was New York Comic Con the one year. One of the booths had an image of it, and of course it was behind glass. And just to sit there and you stare at the book that started it all. I'm like, oh man, and like I want it. So it's one of those things that it's, obviously a price factor, and so that I think is something that one day I'm going to have that, and obviously I'll have it sealed up nicely in a nice case and do all the whole 9 yards with it, do it right. But that in itself that's what I would call the Holy Grail. As for other books out there that I would probably read, there's a lot of different stuff that I know you've talked about, from the variations on the non-DC stuff, the early DC stories that you've always like really raved about, that I'm like, and I try to get those in the hardcovers, or I try to get those in some of the collected editions. And so there's still a bunch of stuff out there, and everyone keeps throwing out, oh, you should read this story. Oh, you should read that. I'm like, okay, let me add it to the list. So I've got this massively long list of stuff that one day I will have it all, and then the other day I'll have to read it.
It's funny with that. I grew up in comics as a reader. And it's not to say that I wasn't a collector. I liked having all the stories to be able to go back and reread them. And I like to fill in issues for reading purposes. So that's kind of always been my collecting mentality. It's been filling in the blanks of story arcs so that way I can see what actually happened. And I love that digital's provided that opportunity. I love going to conventions and getting bundles. So when you go to conventions, sometimes you'll have these dealers that will bundle runs together where you can kind of grab them at a really cool price and have all those issues together. So that tends to be a big thing I like to do. Very similar to you. You were mentioning Action Comics. Obviously, early Batman appearances, starting right back to the beginning in Detective Comics, straight on through, to be able to, if I were able to find a Holy Grail and have the money to be able to purchase some of those early appearances of the Batman family, in their various roles. I would love to have some of those issues. Over the years, I've collected a number of the issues that I sold in my childhood, or got beat up in my childhood, that were landmarks. I've framed a lot of them because I have other copies of them, after I've gotten them signed by creators. And I've started to run out of wall space for that. So I've got a number of signed issues of really cool things that I really, what I want is for my Holy Grail is more wall space to be able to put some of these things up. But I really like having those as keepsakes and memories of actually meeting those creators. So that was kind of fun for me. But it really is, early Batman issues. Lately, the stuff I've been really into that have been kind of my Holy Grail are newer things. Like they've been newer releases of this. Did you get the Batman Golden Age omnibus?
No, I don't think I did.
It's a full omnibus size collection of. Remember how they were releasing those Batman chronological?
Yeah.
This is now a full size hardcover, omnibus size hardcover of the classic Batman material.
Ooh.
So, all of the original Batman books, Batman Detective Comics and stuff like that. They just solicited this month volume 2 of it. And I just got digitally on Comixology I went through the DCB service portal, and I just ordered the Superman one. They just released it on Comixology. I've become such a hybrid collector now of... I like some stuff digital, like some stuff paper. I like the variety of the medium. I like that sometimes I can pull up a great... I've got the Absolute Green Lantern, Green Arrow book up here, and I've been reading that lately, and it's nice to have that in paper and just kind of go through that experience. It's nice when I'm sitting in my chair sometimes to kick back and just have a book in front of me and really enjoy that experience. Other times, I'm really enjoying being on my iPad and just having a wealth of cool stuff on Comixology that's really in a very thin form factor, having just my iPad, and I got one of those iPad Pros. So I really like the screen size for reading comics. So that's a lot of fun because I'm using it for my class. There's a lot of textbooks digitally that work really well on an iPad, for highlighting and note-taking and annotating. And I prefer a digital medium for that kind of stuff to have it with me because then I can cut and paste stuff into when I'm looking for reference material for papers. So it's nice to have that and have that be my comic reader too. So it serves a lot of hats. So I don't know. I don't really have a singular Holy Grail comic I'm looking for right now. I've been very lucky in that landmark issues from growing up are the ones that I've really wanted to collect. Oh, you know what I would like? I will say this. They have those oversized comics like Batman versus the Hulk and stuff like that. I had those when I was growing up. I don't have the oversized version of them, like Superman Muhammad Ali, Superman versus Spider-Man, those type of things. Those are books that I would really love to have again. I think there was one, and this is going way back to my childhood. I thought there was one with Shazam and Superman, maybe? I might be wrong on that one. I remember one of the first ones I have, I thought was an oversized one with Shazam on it. And I have to look it up after this episode because it's going to drive me nuts. If there was something that'd be a holy grail for me, it would be able to get those treasury editions, those big ones, to start getting some of those that I had in my collection when I was growing up. Because some of those are so old, like the Shazam one that think I'm referencing, that I don't, it's honestly was so long ago that I don't remember it. And I would love to have that again and experience it now as an adult, and really kind of go through, because I'm 45 now, be able to go through and read that now at 45 and go, oh, that was what I read, and kind of see what those would be like. I just love that they were oversized. We kind of take oversized for granted with Absolute, but these were bigger, and I would love to see that artwork again and be able to enjoy that storytelling experience, see how it holds up. Those would be probably my holy grails, would be those treasury editions. I think, any of them, to get a chance to check out one of them. It's good stuff. I mean, it's great. It's a great question. And it's not a simple one, but it's a great question.
Hey, guys. This is Superman 2K38 here. Yeah, I just listened to your podcast about the Rebirth event that's happening or going to happen, and I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the show, and I definitely share your excitement. I'm psyched about the whole event. Or the whole thing happening. I'll be honest, I'm one of those guys that didn't quite totally buy into the New 52, not because of a lack of quality, but I couldn't quite get over the lack of legacy, and it kept me from totally investing into it. I followed it here and there, but I just felt the weight of it missing, and it's just something I couldn't get over. So I am glad that it's coming back. It's got me totally psyched and wanting to now read everything. So I'm catching up on New 52 stuff. I want to see how that plays into the Rebirth DCU, and I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. And I just wanted to share that with you. And you guys put on a great show, and I really enjoyed the podcast. And there's three things. I just wanted to mention three things that I'm really hoping for. I didn't really see them reflected in the title announcement. One is I love the DC Magic Universe, and I know we're getting a Hellblazer title, but I hope that the Magic Universe gets expounded more in some other titles, and maybe another title down the line, whether it's a team book or something of that nature. Another thing is I want more Hawkman. I love Hawkman. I love Hawkwoman. I love that whole mythology. Whichever Hawkman it is, whichever Hawkwoman it is, I don't care. As long as we get something, that'd be awesome. And also Shazam. I would love to see Shazam get his own title and see that whole family, the whole Shazam family represented well in the Rebirth DCU. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Share your excitement. Great show, and keep on trucking. All right? Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Sometimes a listener will call in with sheer brilliance. And this is a case in point. I mean, to sit there and come in and say, you know what, I really need to let people know there needs to be more Hawk books. I could not agree more. So, I mean, that's really all I've got for you.
We need more cowbell.
No, honestly, I love the fact that he called in and said, hey, you know what, the New 52, because I'm hoping this is going to be the case with it, because we've been loving the New 52, but I do recognize that there's been a lot of fans who said that they feel detached from what they loved about DC, and that was its rich legacy. And I love that piece too, so I get it. I think it's cool that Rebirth is getting people excited who have been missing that component. And I hope more of that happens, because if there's one thing that this Rebirth needs to do successfully, I think there's been some fans clearly from their sales numbers that feel disenfranchised. Great opportunity to bring them back into the fold and try to listen and say, okay, here's what people are looking for that we haven't been doing. Let's bring this back in. Let's get this piece back together, tighten things up a little bit, get the kind of storytelling out there that people are looking for, and really bring back some of our franchises and legacy piece to this. So I'm hoping that over the next year, we see them bringing back the pieces parts that we're looking for. I didn't see the Hawks in there either. I want to see them as well. If anything, I'm hoping there's a prominent role for them in the Justice Society when that launches, because I'd love to see them on a team. That was the JSA book was the one that launched that for me. You know, like a renewed excitement for that group, and Jeff Johns doing that was really terrific. So I'm hoping maybe we get to see him in that role. I really liked the Earth 2 Kendra, and I liked what was going on with her. So you know, I'm hoping that we get characters like that coming into the line with this. So I don't know what's left for Earth 2. I don't know how Earth 2 is going to play, you know, the current Earth 2 is, if at all, is going to play into this. I'm just excited to see what that future's got to bring for it. But I think really good points there.
Yeah. I laugh, but I would like to see more of the Hawks too, because they are cool characters. And with what you said about the Justice Society, I'd like to see that. You know, I think that's really a good spot for them to fit in. You know, and that would be you know, kind of a good groove to, you know, bring the characters back, you know, as part of that team, because they are a legacy as part of that team. So let's bring them into it. Let's get the story going that way. So it's and I don't think the list they've put out is the complete list. I think we got more stuff coming down the line that's going to get released, whether it's gets started, you know, after the initial first wave, or, you know, so I think we may have some more titles coming down, I hope.
Yeah, because that list doesn't seem representative of books that I don't think they're going to cancel.
Right.
So I think there's going to be some, because I think there's going to be some, like, are they canceling Secret Six? I don't know. I don't know that that's the case anymore, because they just started releasing this Legends of Tomorrow book. Why would you release that and then cancel it? So I don't think that every book that's out right now is going to get canceled. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I'm saying that because as a rabid Secret Six fan, I'm hoping we still got
we
them
want that.
after this. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what this is going to lead to. I'm actually excited about that, though. That kind of mystery doesn't bother me, because what that says to me is there's some opportunity for some things to stick around, new things to be brought in. I don't know. I'm making a lot of assumptions here. It may be that they're wiping out the line and starting over and doing, and that's fine if they're doing that. I don't know. I'm excited. And to his point, that excitement's great. And I like that there's somebody who's saying, hey, I'm one of the people that felt disenfranchised by what they did with some of the New 52, and I'm excited for this. So that's great, because that's a converging of fans. We're in an excited for the New 52 currently. You and I have been on board and enjoying that. And to hear that there's a fan who didn't feel the same way, who feels like this event's going to be exciting for them and this relaunch, that makes me excited, because that means, you know, it's a chance for fans to kind of, DC fans to kind of reconnect and regroup, and more opportunity for them. So that part is, if they pull that off, that's a victory, because really bringing everyone together. And the timing's good. Honestly, that movie, Batman Superman, is coming out this week, and I'm going tomorrow night. I can't wait. I'm salivating for that. I don't want any. I know that some people have seen it, and there's been previews and stuff like that. Tomorrow's Thursday, and I don't know if I'm going to finish this tonight or tomorrow for release. It'll be released either on Wednesday or Thursday, so I may have seen the movie when I actually release this. But I can't wait. I'm going to a 6:00 show. I'm literally jumping out after work, getting in my car, heading over, actually towards your neck of the woods to go see it in the Super 3D. Because I want to see this movie, and I don't want anybody spoiling anything. I don't want to know a thing. I've seen the previews. I think they've been really good previews. I can't wait to just experience this in the theater with a crowd. I hope people are dressed up. I got a shirt for it. I actually got a Batman Superman T-shirt that I ordered to wear it. I want to be a part of that whole geek culture experience and just be there, and I don't know, yay.
Cool.
And I'm glad to hear the pre-orders are doing as well, or you know, and similar to Force Awakens, because this has been quite a year for geek culture. You know, there's so much really good stuff, and actually we'll talk about it more after this next phone call. But you know, really great phone call, and thank you for calling in on that one, because there's some really good stuff going on right now.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is Dell in Houston. And so I'm behind on a couple episodes, so I was just listening to the discussion you guys are having about television shows and Supergirl and things like that. And usually I call during the TV season, and so I don't think I've called yet this year. I just have to say, I think that this season is just so awesome. I think DC is just knocking it out of the park in so many different ways. It's crazy. You know, from all the different shows, they're just doing a great job. And I'm not even a fanboy about this, loving it. I mean, for example, we're talking about Supergirl. my wife is watching Supergirl, which shocked the heck out of me. She's telling me, "Oh, I was waiting to watch it on DVR with you, so we can watch it together." I'm like, "What?" A few weeks ago, I go to my in-laws, and my mother-in-law has Supergirl on her DVR. She's been watching and like keeping up with the shows, which is just crazy. Never thought I'd see that. But I know you guys are talking about the upcoming Supergirl Flash crossover, and sorry, Jim, I usually like a lot of your comments, but I really hope they don't do a different timeline type thing. And another thing I've been hearing is people are saying that it may be a different Earth, and I'm really hoping that that's not the case. I think in a similar fashion, it would limit the ability for future crossovers with Supergirl and those guys being on a different Earth, because it wouldn't make sense, And also a few weeks ago on Supergirl, she made a comment when she was fighting that prison guard, the former prison guard, saying, "Hey, I thought the guys who were masked were in the other cities." So I'm thinking that might be a little wink and a nod to Central City or Star City or what have you. And, also a lot of people are saying that the reason it could be a different Earth is because Superman isn't mentioned, all of a sudden it went down in Star City when they tried to destroy, I can't remember the name of the area of town, but, when they destroyed the area of town. And I'm thinking that, they could easily deal with that with just something in the background, like old newspaper headline, at Iris's job, it says, Superman helps Central City after disaster. Superman helps Starling City after the earthquake, or helps Central City after the collider mishap. And, something like that, or a newspaper, or just something along those lines. And boom, then you have Superman in continuity, which means Supergirl's in continuity, as far as being on the same Earth. Boom, so move on with the story and get ready for future crossovers, down the line. Well, I just think it's just great right now to be a comic book fan, to be a comic book property fan. I mean, in 3 weeks from now, it's going to be BBS and stuff is opening up. I mean, a lot of us, those of us who are around 40s, we've been waiting 30, 35 years to see this ever since we used to see Super Friends on television. You've been waiting to see Batman and Superman together on screen, Wonder Woman, and all of the other apparent leaks that are out there, which I'm not going to mention because I try to stay as spoiler-free as possible. So I just want to call, just kind of share my opinions there, because I'm just really enjoying this time, and all the different properties. I think Lucifer, one of the DC properties, well, not DC, but Vertigo or something like that. I'm not sure. So don't quote me on that. But I've been just binge watched that. Speaking of which, there's a story about the guy who plays the Angel, and they're kind of interested in being John Stewart, Green Lantern. So who knows? What if that's something that may materialize? But anyway, I'm going to finish listening to the rest of the show. I just kind of stopped midway just to make this phone call. And so I'm going to listen to the rest of the show and hope things going well for you guys. And I know just like me, you're looking forward to BBS, which is only second right now in pre-sales to Force Awakens. So let's see how that goes. So you guys have a good one, and I'll keep listening. Bye.
I totally agree with his sentiments on television right now. I think DC television is just at an all-time high. And I honestly, my problem is I'm having trouble keeping up with the shows, but I'm not mad about that. I like stockpiling them and watching. Like, I'm caught up now with the main four. I'm caught up with Supergirl. I'm caught up with The Flash. I'm caught up with Gotham, and I mean 5 actually. Legends of Tomorrow, that whole crew. I miscounted. The main superhero ones I'm caught up with. I'm a little behind on iZombie and Lucifer now, not because of quality. I'm watching so many shows, and I love the Marvel shows, and there's all kinds of kooky stuff going on there. There's Netflix, for Daredevil, and there's too much stuff on, and it's a good problem to have. And I watch stuff like Comic Book Men and Walking Dead, and I don't know. It's this is like it's a geek smorgasbord.
Yes,
and it's
big time.
awesome. It's all good, well produced material that really honors the properties, and I love this.
And I tell you, Supergirl is doing a great job with non-comic book readers, because my mom absolutely loves Supergirl. And it's funny because Mom and I have conversations about Supergirl, and like the one the alien plant, I can't think of the name of it now. The Dream one.
Why am I drawing a blank on that one? It was from the Superman story with Alan Moore.
Right. And that episode, Mom's like, it was a really weird episode. It was kind of weird for Mom. I'm like, no, Mom, that's a traditional classic story from the mythos. Oh, okay. And it's funny because periodically she'll throw out like comments about this person or that person, and it's she's getting one thing out of it, I'm getting something else. I see the little Easter eggs they're leaving for the comic book readers, but she's still enjoying the process. And just so Supergirl, they're really doing they're really doing that well with again, it's a great comic book fan story, but non-comic book people are also enjoying it, so it's got a solid story backing it.
Black Mercy.
Thank you.
I was so drawing a blank on it. It was driving me nuts. I'm like, I love the story, first of all, on television, but I also love it in classic comics. And man, it's, one thing Supergirl's doing really well is, I think you're right, finding a great balance there. I think Gotham did that as well. My brother and my dad were both, I haven't talked to my brother about it in a while, but my dad, before he passed away, was watching Gotham. And honestly, I never would have thought that there'd be a time in my life where I was connecting with my dad over Batman. And to be able to talk with him about Gotham was probably, one of those bittersweet moments. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, this just does, because my dad and my brother always connected over things like, golf and sports and stuff like that, which were never really my forte. And, it was nice to be able to have that opportunity with shows like Gotham. And I think you're right. They're really doing a great job in making this programming accessible to an audience that normally isn't into superheroes, while at the same time finding the right tone and beats that make it so much fun for the rest of us that have just loved these properties for years. It's really great stuff. I've been collecting for these shows. Have you seen the statues? They're a little bit bigger than your normal statues. They've got one for Arrow, Flash, Gotham, Supergirl.
Oh yeah. There's some cool stuff out there.
I've got all of those. It's I've got the Jim Gordon one. I've got the Flash one, and the Arrow one. It's the second version of it. They re-released it, and I ended up getting the second version because I never grabbed it the first time around. I'm like, oh, how did I miss this baby? But they're really gorgeous statues, and that's how into the shows that I am. That I'm like, I really want the statues that go along with this. I think it's really.
I have the police badges.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
that's cool. The three.
They released the 3 cities. I have all 3 cities.
I love swag. I mean, it's really great. And here's the nice thing about that. We're both into these shows and we're doing different collectibles that are based on our interests. I love that there's so many things out there that you can just kind of grab. Oh, I'm into this. I want to collect these pieces. And I can actually see you getting the badges. I mean, it's it's a very Jim kind of thing to go after. And I think it's cool that they have such cool swag and stuff like that. Hey, with the Earth 2, he was mentioning, Earth 2 and the Flash and Supergirl not being on the same world. It's funny. We talked about that on the show. Does it bother you that they're not on the same Earth?
No, I like that.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with that at all. I think my thinking was, I want to see them team up in the future. Depending on the scenario, it would limit that. In the sense that I wanted to see her team up with Arrow and all that. I don't know that you can't with them being on different worlds. There's all kinds of ways to do storylines like that. I had my preferences. I wanted them to be a part of the same universe, but I have zero issue with it taking place. Hey, did you hear Constantine's going to come on Legends tomorrow?
Oh, cool. I did not hear that. I did not know that. That's awesome.
It's the same actor who was on it. It looks like he's gonna be on Legends tomorrow. So I'm glad to see that
he made the appearance on Arrow, so he can make his appearance on this. He's firmly in that universe. They firmly put him in that universe now.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see, that there's more of these characters popping up, and I think that's a really good move because that show was so great, and I'm glad to see that that's existing. So I don't know, I'm really loving what they're doing in television right now with comic property. I can't wait for Preacher.
Yes.
Preacher on AMC is going to be sweet. I know that they're going to tone down certain things because of the fact the comic really went far, and I loved that edge to it. I don't have a problem with them making some changes to it for the purpose of making it a little bit more TV friendly. They got to keep that edge though, because man, it's the three of them, Jesse, Cassidy, and Tulip.
Yeah,
gotta do those three right. And Santa Killers, you gotta have Santa Killers.
That's the one I wanted to, because I haven't seen who they've cast for him yet.
No, it's going to be really. I have high hopes for that to be a successful series. AMC's been doing a really good job so far, so I'm just hoping that this one hits it out of the park because it's just really great material. Is there something you want to see on TV now? With if you look at DC's properties, is there something where you're like, I'd really love to see this done on television?
I would love to see the Green Lantern Corps
on TV.
I would really love to see that.
Live action or?
Yeah, oh yeah, okay. Live action. Which it would be interesting but the special effects, they could pull it off. They have it. They have the technology, and they could do it. And I'd like to see an actual show of the Corps. And I would put him in space and not just have him be on Earth. Do the full thing where he gets the ring, he goes to Oa. The first season, I would have him on Oa training and have him do with the aliens and do the giant space opera where he's a rookie, Lantern, where he's not on Earth yet. And then you bring him season 2, you bring him onto Earth, and he's actually now, Hal Jordan's got to reintegrate back into life, explain why he was gone for so long, and and just do the process and actually have the Green Lantern on Earth. And I would keep him in the Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow universe. Sure. I'd have them all on that same Earth, because in Flash they've already mentioned. In one of the Flash episodes, they're on Ferris Airstrip. They're like, "Well, this thing has been abandoned since that one pilot went missing." And I'm like, right there, they're laying on the line to have Green Lantern. All right. And I was hooping and hollering when they threw out that one little liner out there. So I'm hoping they bring in a Green Lantern. I'm hoping they bring in the Lanterns.
Honestly, bringing him into one of those shows would be a great way to introduce him and get fan reaction. I would love to see that on TV. And the reason why is when you mention the Green Lantern Corps, you look at a wide variety of characters. If you look at shows like Babylon 5 and the most recent Battlestar Galactica, epic space opera, where they're dealing with multiple characters. Yeah, you've got some of your main ones that you're really focused on, but you have so many great stories with characters that are quote-unquote background characters, but really affect the overall story. That type of writing and that type of character drama really lends itself to doing a great Green Lantern Corps show, and setting it mainly in space with having the Earth interaction be, kind of a secondary piece is really a great way to make the show different than what's going on in these other programs that we're already seeing. To set it apart, I think it'd be cool. I don't know. I hope that somebody would consider something like that because, man, would that be fun.
Oh, no, you don't!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. It's always in our show notes. It's always on our website. We love having you a part of our show, so please feel free to call in. Jim, actually, speaking of our voicemail line, we happened to be chatting with Alan Passalaqua, and while we were waiting to talk to Alan, we got a phone call from Dr. Bluebird. So she has not vanished. She thought we were, a pizza shop or something like that? I don't know. Or the Cabin. The Cabin restaurant. That's what it was. Yeah, she called up asking if we were the Cabin, and we are not the Cabin. So I don't think we're done with her just yet. She thinks our phone number is everybody's phone number, so we will get a phone call from her again. I have confidence, but it was fun to check in with Dr. Bluebird on our anniversary. And I wish she'd said happy anniversary.
I know.
Besides that, I want to shout out our show website. It's ragingbullets.com. That's where you find out news about new podcast releases. It's linked to our Twitter, our Facebook fan page. We can get to our Facebook group from there. We have a wonderful Facebook group community, and I mentioned it previously on the podcast just how much that group means, and I really love that group has expanded off doing its own thing and really just enjoying talking about comics, pop culture, websites, news. They do regular fan chats. They'll do Google chats about what's going on TV episodes, live chatting about episodes and things. I think it's really great. It's just a wonderful community that they hold their own events. I mean, it's their community now. I'm proud that our name is associated with it on any level, and I just want to thank the wonderful people that are there for being just such a great welcoming community for new people that are popping in and just being I think it's a must-hit destination. I love going there and browsing and just seeing what people are talking about and clicking on websites that they've shared links from. It's really just a great one-stop shop for great geek conversation, and I just love the people there, so it's just great to be a part of it. Besides that, we are also we have our own Facebook pages. We're on Google+. You want to find us, we're all over the place, so I really want you guys to know that you're important to us. And without further ado, Jim, we are sponsored once again by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. What's going on, DCB Service?
Of course, we got some great bundles. They're continuing the Vertigo support. 50% off all 12 titles, only $23.88. But remember, DCBS is a great source for action figures. And they right now have a cool special on based off of the Batman versus Superman. Armored Batman, 32% off, only $34. And a Superman, 32% off, only $30.60. But also a really cool action accessory pack. It's 32% off, $19.04. And you can get a little chip action figure included with that.
If you're a fan of crossovers, Star Trek Green Lantern trade paperback over at InStockTrades.com, The Spectrum War, that miniseries is collected 30% off, only $13.99. Batman Arkham Knight Genesis hardcover. This is based off of the most recent video game, 45% off, only $10.99. Huge fan of the game, huge fan of the tie-ins. It's great stuff. Wonder Woman War of the Gods trade paperback. This is an excellent classic story. George Perez, 45% off, $13.74. I'm a big fan of Disney, and this one I'm geeking out about. It's the Walt Disney Donald Duck Sunday Newspaper Comics Collection, Volume 1, and it's 30% off, only $34.99. That's one of the things I really love about InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com, kind of browsing and making a strategic plan as far as what I'm going to order, because there's such cool stuff out there all the time, and I think it's really, really great that they keep providing those opportunities. So thank you, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, for supporting us over the last 10 years and supporting so many other podcasts. I really think they're a great service. I'm proud to use them. And I used them long before they sponsored our podcast, and I think it's really great that they continue to support us. So I just want to personally thank them for that. Jim, our next episode is going to be up in about 10 days or so. We're going to be talking about Batman v Superman. Woo-hoo. We will see everyone then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.